Hello everybody, how's it going, and welcome back to the As Always podcast, a special spoiler cast episode today, and we're going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm one of your hosts, James, and I'm joined, as always, by Tyler.
As always, how's it going, my friend?
It's going really good. I'm glad I got that intro out without stuttering or fucking it up or something.
Mate, you
know what I mean?
Yeah. Here we are again, in the middle of the Christmas New Year's break. Doing a podcast. Like we've never done this. We've never done this of all the years. Well, this is always our break time. We talk about, we're so happy to have this break. We don't have to do a podcast, and here we fucking are. We can't help ourselves. We can't help ourselves. But do a podcast. It's what we do.
We're heroes, is what we are, and we do it for the people. Really,
it's true.
So you're welcome.
You're 100% true. But then this little movie came out. Not sure if you've heard of it, Spider-Man No Way Home. And we literally had no choice. We have to talk about this. Like, because I didn't even look at it like a podcast. I'm like, I just have to sit down and talk to James about it. It's not even a podcast, and the fact that I'll be editing it. Because I know Josh would want to edit it, but let him have a fucking holiday. Let the man have a break. Yeah. You know? Don't want to throw this at him last minute. But anyway, shout out to Josh, who's just been amazing all year. But we're here on the eve of... Oh, it's not New Year's Eve. It's the eve of New Year's Eve. But this will be coming out on New Year's Eve, hopefully, if I can get my act together. Or the first. One of the two. Or the first. But obviously, we're on sabbatical right now. We're on holidays. We're taking a break from everything and getting ourselves ready for 2022 with, some fun new stuff. New artwork will be coming, like all that cool stuff. But in the meantime, James and I are going to sit here and talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. Spoilers. But we couldn't do it without the great people over on patreon.com/as always. Those producers there, they make the show happen. They're the reason we do this. They're the reason we're like, you know what? Let's get up in the middle of our holidays and do a podcast anyway.
Yeah.
So thanks to them. Thank you, Ollie the Superior Ollie, Avery Dobbs, Clark53, Damien, Epic Alaric, or Sam's Chubby Dick, Ferentino, Flash Paradox, Franco Dispa Olsen, King Richard III, Ryan Hafer, Tristan Weaver, Viridian, and of course, Ballsack47. Thank you, Sweet Vintage Lads, for helping power this podcast. This is something we haven't done at all this year. It's taken up until the last second of 2021 to do a spoiler cast. And as always, spoiler cast. Obviously, we used to have the Cinema Room podcast, and that's discontinued. So we're calling spoiler cast just a regular, so as always, special. Which is what this is.
Like it used to be. It always used to be. You used to do Kill Connor Club spoiler casts back in the day.
It did.
Remember those? Yeah.
I do. I remember them. I personally remember them. Red Dead Redemption 2,
them,
God of War were all just as always. Well, Kill Connor Club. I forget that that's what it was ever called.
I know, Kill Connor Club.
I don't even remember that.
Back in the day.
That's wild. But it's only been 2 years of the As Always podcast, but it's been 2 brilliant years, and it's made me forget about that terrible name that we hung on to for too long. For way too long, 5 years. But here we are. Anyway, James, how many times have you seen Spider-Man No Way Home at this point?
I have seen it twice.
Excellent. I've seen it 3 times.
Damn, that's a few times.
It's a few times. And I think let's give our general thoughts, because obviously, spoiler warning, we're going to talk about all spoilers in detail, break down this movie bit by bit, piece by piece. But overall, let's 2 different takes, right? I want to hear your thoughts. The initial, you saw it day one, cinema's full of surprises reaction, to then now, how do you feel 2 weeks removed from that? Thinking about it, you've seen it twice, you've had time to digest it. Give me both reactions. First of all, what was your initial walk out of the cinema feeling of Spider-Man No Way Home?
Initially, it was pretty much all hype. It was just, everything that happened was so fun and so interesting. Like, all of the film I pretty much really liked. There was still some moments where I was like, I don't know about that necessarily. It was a bit maybe not how I would have done it, but overall, like, I just sort of let it slide and was like, it's kind of whatever, because everything was so fucking cool. But I think my core takeaway the first time I saw it, and I think that remains my biggest takeaway and what I like the most about the film, even now after watching it and having time to think about it, was not necessarily the big spectacle or this multiverse stuff or the other Spider-Man or whatever else was happening in the film. My biggest thing, and what I actually really liked the most, was what they did for Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Yes.
That was like the thing I loved even the first time I watched the film. And it stunned me how much the film focuses on Tom Holland's Spider-Man and his character growth and his progression and who he is and what it means for him to be Spider-Man, more than it focuses on, look at the multiverse stuff we're doing. Like, all that stuff's there and it's present, but the way that's not necessarily the core focus. Yeah, exactly. Everything that they did aids this story they're telling. And that is something that shocked me a lot, because they did it quite well in Homecoming. Homecoming is still a really solid Spider-Man film, and I enjoy a lot of the things they do there. But then you look at Far From Home, and you look at how he was handled in like Infinity War and Endgame and stuff. And obviously, it's not movie. It's that it's just MCU stuff happening. They're not really focusing on like, what does it mean to be Spider-Man? Like, what is Peter's growth? Where's he gonna go as Spider-Man? And I think No Way Home really did that, and it was like the core focus of the film. But they do that through this multiverse stuff and through like, well, Peter fucked something up and there's got to be consequences for doing that, and his relationship with MJ and Ned and meeting Andrew and Toby and all of these things, and it all aids his own progression to be at the point where we end the film, which is just the perfect MCU Spider-Man to me. And that was like the biggest takeaway for me, was like, there might be some things I don't like, there might be some cringy MCU jokes, but that final half of the film is just, to me, it's just like the perfect film. It's so well done.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, my initial reaction was like, I was sitting there in stunned silence when the credits came on, from just the whole experience of watching that movie for the first time. And my brother and my friends turned to me and they go, Tyler, what do you think? And I said, that was the best movie I've ever seen. Like, I was like, I'm fucking stunned. I just couldn't. I was so worried about this movie. I've been very open about the fact of how nervous I've been about this movie, of how easily they can fuck this up, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I personally am a big Tom Holland Spider-Man fan. I've never been the biggest Spider-Man fan. Like, I like the Raimi movies, but I don't like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in them. Like, and I don't like Spider-Man 3 at all. I fucking hate Spider-Man 3. And I like the first Amazing Spider-Man, and I don't like the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I always liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I just thought he was way too cool to be Peter Parker. I was like, I like how he plays Spider-Man. I don't like how he plays Peter Parker. That's how I always felt about Andrew Garfield. So I'm like, Spider-Man's not really for me. I like him. I know him. I played the games as a kid. Like, I watched the animated cartoons when I was little, like in the early 2000s, like late 90s. And I get it, but it just wasn't for me. It wasn't my like superhero. That's just how it was. They bring him into the MCU. I'm a big MCU guy. And we say now it's easy for us to joke. It's funny because he just did it. It's like, oh, it's just like an MCU movie. Or it's just cringy MCU jokes. But I'm like, the MCU's fucking awesome. And I don't want to disrespect it. I know people like to disrespect it now because it's sort of the cool thing to do. Because it's so indestructible and untouchable that it's like, we can give it a bit of shit because it doesn't matter. But let's just not pretend that the MCU hasn't given us some of the funnest fucking movies of all time. And isn't really just a joy overall. But they bring in, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. And I was like, look, I've seen Spider-Man in my short lifetime 3 times now. This is the 3rd Spider-Man live action. I'm like, I don't need to see Uncle Ben die. I don't need to see this shit. I've seen it before. I'm over it. I don't care about bringing Spider-Man into the MCU. I was just so whatever about it. I loved what they did in Civil War. I love how they brought in this actual kid to play him. Like an actual kid. And the Civil War scenes, I thought they nailed all the heart of who Peter Parker is. They didn't have me watch him get bit by a spider or Uncle Ben die. They skipped all that nonsense. We've seen it. We know what happened to him. Let's just get into him being Spider-Man, but he's really young. I'm like, this is a great take. I'm excited. And I loved Homecoming. Up until No Way Home was my favorite Spider-Man movie. And I just have enjoyed Tom Holland a lot, personally. That's how I felt. Now, I've understood your criticisms of like, you want to see him be like those Spider-Man problems that the MCU is not giving him by having everyone know his identity. Like, and I understood what you're saying. He's not progressing. And I'm like, look, I will agree with you if No Way Home doesn't do it. Like, I feel like I'm enjoying the slow burn. I like what they've done, but you're right. He does need to have some real growth in No Way Home. Like, he needs to really step up and be his own hero. I would agree. If No Way Home didn't do that and it felt like Far From Home, I'd be like, okay, they're not nailing this anymore. This isn't what it's supposed to be. So I was nervous because they're like, oh, here's all the old villains, the rumors of Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire coming back, all these different things coming. And I'm so concerned. I'm like, they're playing with so much shit. They've also got the MCU elements of his Doctor Strange in there. And I'm like, are they making it too MCU and throwing all these old nostalgia villains in there? Will the old Spider-Man really appear? I know it's rumors, but what if they didn't come back? What if they didn't? What if they didn't? And that just falls flat in its ass. Or what if they all come back and it's a clusterfuck of meaningless shit? And at the end, it's like them moving Tom Holland Spider-Man into that Sony verse with Venom and making that. But like, there were so many things that could have happened, and I was so concerned. I was just concerned. And I don't think they could have nailed it more than they nailed every single element of it. The multiverse, the MCU parts of it, to make it still feel like an MCU movie in parts. Whether that be with the humor, but with it connecting the other characters of the MCU. We know that there is a greater universe out there that exists, making that fit in. But then also telling, to me, my favorite Spider-Man Peter Parker story that had all those things that I understand that you love about it. And it's not that I don't love it about it. It's that I was enjoying the MCU's take. And I was enjoying that I don't need to see that again. But what I love is that I've got this MCU Spider-Man in Tom Holland that's done all these cool things. He's been in the Avengers. He's done the celebrity stuff. And now we get to explore that side of it, what that means to him now as he's getting older too. We've seen him sort of grow up a bit. And I love the combination of the things you and the Spider-Man fans love about a Peter Parker story, love about a Spider-Man story. I adored that stuff they had in here. Adored it. Because I love how it combined with what they've done with MCU Tom Holland. And the way, like you said, all these crazy elements they threw in, they weren't just there to be there. They were there for story. They were there for character, for Tom Holland, for Spider-Man, and for the future of Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, how do you nail... And you also paid off 20 years of previous Spider-Man movies, somehow. Perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
You nailed... And everyone knows how much I don't like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Because I thought, you watch Spider-Man 1, I'm like, that's a 40-year-old playing a 16-year-old, and I don't buy it. It's creepy and it's weird. But do you know what he was doing in this movie? He was a 40-year-old playing a 40-year-old Spider-Man, and you know what? I fucking loved it. I thought he was awesome. I absolutely, you'll never hear me say this any other time, I absolutely loved Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in this movie. I loved it.
Amazing.
I thought he was fantastic. I loved Andrew Garfield.
Always has been.
Always. I loved Andrew Garfield. I thought, personally, he actually stole the end of this movie a lot. I thought
he was really good.
Absolutely. Because, to be honest, as an actor, he's the best actor in there. And I always believe that. I just don't think he played a good Peter Parker. But the way they used him in this movie as Spider-Man, nailed him. They paid off his character because he got fucked by Sony real hard. And I know we'll get into this later, but they fucking paid him back and gave him the due reserves. Now, I don't want these Spider-Man fans that are out there ruining the No Way Home and saying, let's bring back Andrew Garfield and make an Amazing Spider-Man 3 that Sony can do. They'll fuck it up. Enjoy what we got, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy it and let it go. That's how I feel. Like, let's move on. But that's my thoughts. I know we've already dived into things that I really want to talk about, but I love Tom Holland. I love where they ended him. I can't wait to see where they go with him. I want to see now where Tom Holland, he's his own hero. He's like a grown-up. He's 18. He's on his own. No one knows he's Spider-Man. And what's going to happen to him now? I'm so excited to see that happen when there's so much history to that Spider-Man. I loved Andrew Garfield. I loved Tobey Maguire. I loved the villains. I loved, more than I've ever loved, Ned and MJ. I thought they nailed those two. Ned, not like Ned, I'm a bit on with a couple of things, more the wizard shit, but whatever.
Yeah.
I thought MJ was awesome. I thought Zendaya was fucking fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, she did a great job.
The chemistry was fucking palpable between those two as well. Like, obviously they're together in real life, and you can tell. Like, there's such real chemistry between those two that they didn't have in the previous two movies. And I thought they nailed, like, the Doctor Strange MCU stuff, and even just little Easter eggs, Daredevil being in there, like, a lot of fun shit.
Oh, amazing.
We'll get into all that, so I'm sorry, but that's my reaction, James, for you in extended detail.
Yeah.
What did you think my reaction was going to be? Because I know you thought I might hate the movie. What was
I thought you could hate it, yeah. Well,
Why
because
did you
I
think
liked it. So I was like, well, Tyler's gonna hate this because,
Yeah.
like, like on MCU Spider-Man, we've always been sort of separated on our views. I think we both like Homecoming. I mean, you like it a bit more than I do.
Yeah, I agree.
We both like that film. When it comes to Far From Home, I think it's like, I mean, I didn't when I first watched it, but obviously, that's what I do. I change my opinion, but I don't like Far From Home. I think it's like terrible, actually.
Do you really? I really like Far From Home. I don't love it, but I really like it. Like, I think it's
like
a fun MCU movie. I think it's a great epilogue to Endgame, but it's... Yeah.
There's some good stuff. Like, there's some moments that I do like, but overall, I think the movie's just, like, fucking weird.
Yeah.
But... So I was, like, watching this film, I was
look... It's not a good Spider-Man movie, and I'll give you that. I think it's a great Marvel Cinematic Universe Endgame epilogue with a hero we know well. Like, in Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
I mean, I just think it's kind of a shit film, to be honest. I hate, like, it's trying to be too funny. It doesn't let itself be serious. I just couldn't, like, it just doesn't get me invested in it. It's just, like... Yeah. Random shit happening.
It's fun.
I don't know.
I think it's a fun time, but probably no more than that, right?
Yeah, so watching No Way Home and the fact that I came out of it, I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. Like, I love what they've done here with Spider-Man. I was like, maybe Tyler's gonna hate it because they've got Spider-Man right. Because like you've been like praising this, like, Spider-Man being just like weird and like Iron Man's apprentice or whatever, and whatever they've been doing with him. And there was elements to that I did like. But I was just thinking, well, now they've taken it back to basics. Is Tyler going to hate this? That they've stripped away all the stuff that you were enjoying in the MCU? But I'm glad that you don't hate it.
No, because I got to see that, and now I get to see both. Like, you're letting me have both stories in one universe, both versions with the same character, and he knows what he went through. He knows he was in the Avengers. He knows what he's been through, and that creates who he is as a character now that he's going to go through the regular Spider-Man stuff alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot, that he's got that history as well, that he's been through so much. Like, these films are like this extended origin story of, like, he's been through so many different things. So now he's come out the other end as, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but he's been through so much that he's, like, this incredibly strong-willed character at this point. And I think that's going to be super interesting going forward to see how they play with, his experience.
It'll be interesting to see him in the Avengers where, like, I don't want him... I want him to keep his secret identity even to, like, Cap and Bucky and stuff, like, when he joins. Because they remember Spider-Man. Everyone knows Spider-Man's in the Avengers. Like, no one in the MCU, like, has forgotten Spider-Man. They've just forgotten that Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
I think so. They weren't very clear on these rules.
Okay, well, this is my understanding is they've forgotten who Peter Parker is completely. Therefore, they know Spider-Man because the Daily Bugle's talking about Spider-Man instantly straight after. And then he's like,
so they still know Spider-Man.
Everyone knows who Spider-Man is. And I think, and obviously Happy goes, oh, I know May through Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, so he remembers Spider-Man.
Everyone knows Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But you don't know who he is. So I think, like, all the memories of... that will be to the Avengers, right? Will be, oh, he always wore the mask. We don't know who he is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think, like, they'll know Spider-Man. Doctor Strange will know Spider-Man and all that sort of stuff. I just don't think they'll know it's Peter Parker. And I think because of what Peter went through in No Way Home, he won't want to tell anyone again. And, like, that's what you see at the end of the... Again, let's go in order, but we'll get to that. But I love that at the end of the movie, like, that moment of, like, no, I'm not going to tell them.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm going to let them go.
So
I'm like, that is... My dick's hard. Like, that is so good. I was like... I cried, like, 3 times in this movie. The first time I saw it. I was absolutely, like, so invested. I couldn't believe how much I liked this movie. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
This is the best... Like, this is top 3... MCU for me. I think for me it's Winter Soldier is my number 1 all-time favorite superhero movie. So that's number 1. Cap Winter Soldier. Endgame, and then it's this.
Interesting.
I think
I'm gonna have to sit on it before I can rank it because I don't know.
I've seen it 3 times. Like I feel pretty confident in the latter part of this movie.
Yeah, I think on my second rewatch, on my first rewatch, my second viewing of it, I think it solidified the way that I felt is that with this film, the second half is so strong and it's everything I wanted to see. The first half, though, is like whatever. It's like, for me, I can just sort of take it or leave it. Like, it's not bad, it's not egregious, but I don't love it. It's just kind of like MCU Spider-Man. Like, I'm kind of over it. Like, I don't need it anymore.
Right. I think...
Which is why I love the second half so much.
I more split into 3 parts, like 3 acts there's 3 acts to this film. Like when you break it down, right? So the first act is everyone knows I'm Spider-Man. What's the fallout of that? That's Act 1, and that ends with his fight with Aldo on the bridge. To me, that's the end of Act 1 because that sort of sets up. Here's your complication. Now enters. Act 2 is dealing with the complications, which is all these villains have come through. And Act 2 ends with Aunt May dying. And that's the end. And what I actually don't like is the end of Act 1 till the end of Act 2. It's not that I don't like, I find it, I was like, on my third viewing, I was like, this is like, the most boring parts of the movie, not that they're boring again, of everything, to me, were him finding all the villains and then bringing them back to the apartment, trying to help them. I was like, that was whatever. Yeah. Like, by third viewing, I'm like, well, I've seen it. And to be fair to the movie, it's the third time I've seen the movie in 2 weeks, so it's just the matter of I've rewatched it so many times. But once they're fighting, like when Green Goblin and that fight happens and Aunt May dies, like that's when it picks up again. From that point on, and then it doesn't stop. And then Act 3 begins with Toby and Andrew entering, and that from that point on, Act 3 is some of the best stuff I've ever seen in a superhero film.
Yeah. Yeah,
that I'm sure the future of cinema will ruin by trying to do it again.
Yeah, probably. I think the point where it changes for me and shifts, and everything after that point I enjoy, is probably around when they like enter Happy's apartment with all of the villains and Peter's trying to cure them.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of great moments in there, like when he cures like Doc Ock and stuff. I think that from that good point to the end of the film, everything in there I really love. But everything before that is just like MCU stuff. It's like whatever.
I really dug the opening to this movie. Let's go back to the start. Let's go back. Let's start.
Okay, let's just go through the film.
Let's go through. Yeah. I really liked the opening to this movie. I don't think it really slowed down. Maybe until he goes to Doctor Strange's house, it starts to slow down for me. Because I feel like we saw a lot of this part of the movie in the trailer. Especially the bridge scene. I was like, this scene could have been really awesome. I don't even like it that much because I feel like I've seen it to death for the last 6 months. And even just him going and seeing Doctor Strange, like that the spell, all of that, I'm like, that stuff I've seen. That stuff I get. And fair play to this movie putting the worst jokes of the whole movie into the trailer. I got that out of the way. I'm like, oh, thank God they were the worst ones. They weren't trying to put the best jokes in the fucking trailer.
Oh, God.
Like the Scooby-Doo, this shit was, what an awful joke. Like, can we just say that? What an awful
so
joke.
Bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. That's like the MCU at its worst. Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
My God.
Yeah.
That's the shit people point to when they're like, oh, the MCU sucks.
Yeah,
like, you know what? Yeah, I guess that does suck.
That moment sucked. I agree. But I loved the opening where he's panicking. Like, everyone knows this is a cool Spider-Man moment to me to see. Because we've not seen anything like this before, where everyone now knows who Peter Parker, that he's Spider-Man. What happens? Like, him rushing back. The way they shot it, too, was really well done in May's apartment. Like, the sort of one shot following Happy to the bedroom. The way it was filmed, how the tension... Like, they acted... Tom and Zendaya nailed the performances, especially Tom, in that scene. I just really enjoyed that tension of everyone knowing, and him swinging MJ around and Flash finding out, and, like, all these little moments of what that would be like for everyone to find out that Peter's Spider-Man. I just really enjoyed that whole section up until... And I really enjoyed them obviously revealing Matt Murdock, Daredevil...
oh my God, yes.
Back again and confirmed in the MCU. I was really happy for as much as I don't give a fuck about Daredevil, I was really happy for fans.
You got to give a
fuck
now.
They got that moment. Well, I don't have to. I don't have to, do I?
Daredevil's one of the best pieces of superhero media. You're missing out.
Well,
and it's all Eagle's fault.
I've said it time and time again that for $1,000 I'll watch it. And I'm not saying don't give me $1,000. We'll send it to charity. Let me choose the charity, and I'll watch it. That's what I said. But we're gonna probably more than $1,000 because we're gonna make it for our next charity event a tier, and I'll watch it. I'm not gonna do a fucking podcast on it. That's not happening. But I'll watch it.
Ridiculous, missing out. Give the people what they want.
But yeah, I've said it time and time again. So yeah, but I was really happy for fans. The Daredevil's back. What was your reaction seeing Daredevil back?
Oh my God. It was, as soon as I saw his little fucking blind man stick. I was like, it's the guy. It's, you know, it's Matt Murdock. It was such a fucking cool moment, and he like, you know, he was it felt like the same character. It felt great, like his little, you know, sarcasm and stuff, and like his, you know, just the like, oh, he's so good. He's so good at it. And it was just really good to see him. Obviously, only a small part of the film, so you can't really gauge exactly, you know, what they're gonna do with him, or whatever. But like, he's here and he's back, so there's.
It was more just a little message to everyone to say that he's back, and I thought they nailed him. Where it's just like, it's a cameo, so good, just letting you guys know he's back, he's here. Don't stress. Like, I really like how they did that, and you know, they showed him off to be a pretty cool character. Like, I was like, this guy's cool. This guy's cool. You know, he goes to Happy. He's like, look, Happy, you're gonna need a really good lawyer. And then 2 seconds later, catches the brick, and he's like, how'd you do that? He's like, I'm a really, really good lawyer.
Yeah, it's like, very Daredevil. It's very good. Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool. I'll give him that. That's pretty fucking cool. So yeah, no, I dug that, and I dug the opening personally. I really enjoyed everyone sort of finding out and him dealing with those consequences, being arrested, and the interrogation scenes and stuff like that. How did you feel about sort of that opening section?
Yeah,
to the film?
I like all of that stuff, because it was, I think the way that they did it is they sort of, I don't know, a big criticism of MCU Spider-Man has been he's not really had to deal with major consequences of things, of his actions.
This movie flipped that script.
This movie decides to completely, to flip that and be like, look, what's actually going to happen if he, you know, decides to do these things. And like, Peter's initial decision, like, once he's, you know, he's had this experience, you know, he's trying to get into college or whatever, like, his immediate like thoughts is to go to Doctor Strange. I like that sort of, like, you know, what he would do in one of the other films, like, he needs something, so he goes to an Avenger. Whereas this time, you know, the movie plays out and he doesn't. You get to see major consequences. But I like the whole opening. I think the opening is strong. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just that middle section I really don't necessarily like. Although the beginning is also got a lot of little MCU moments in there where I'm like, I kind of want to get to the, you know, the meaningful shit. I like kind of want to, you know, get somewhere that I can really, you know, feel something. Just because it's been so long with this Spider-Man where I just sort of haven't felt much. The last time was really Homecoming, and even that wasn't, you know, spot on, I guess, for me. So, yeah, I guess it was a bit of like, you know, there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's not as bad as like Far From Home. But I think the whole opening is sort of, you know, it's well paced. It focuses a lot on this fallout of what's happened. And I think all that's really solid. So I'm,
like, did MCU moments that I could see that you didn't like, if I'm going to guess, was like, so they're walking through into school, and it's a big deal, and it's quite dramatic and serious, and then you're like, MJ, you're gonna have a spider babies, like that guy. I'm like, that's very MCU. I thought that stuff, I don't mind that stuff. I got like really liked. I tell you what, I really liked. I'm not sure if you would have liked. In fact, I loved the teachers got their little scene in there. I dug that. When he comes back to school, and Hannibal Buress is like fucking the gym teacher. Like, these are comedians, well-known comedians. And, you know, how they're divided. You know, it's an honor to serve you, sir. Like, all that sort of stuff. I thought that was just a great little scene to have the teachers in there. You know, Mysterio was right. I know what you did. Like, all that. I thought all that stuff I enjoyed. It was... I really liked the college stuff, because that to me felt like Peter problems as well. Like, that's what you want to see from... This is the reason I liked seeing Peter being so young, was we actually got to really delve into, over these 3 films, the high school experience. And I think in some points, especially Far From Home, we missed some of that. I mean, that's the thing. I think Far From Home should have been this... it shouldn't have been Far From Home. It should have been something else. We should have been this stepping stone, because I feel like in this film, we're dealing with like Ned and MJ and Peter, and they're together, and like they're progressing, and like you get like these moments where Ned is being the guy in the chair again. It feels like we missed a whole thing. Like, whereas Far From Home should have been that in-between period between Homecoming and No Way Home, where we got to see them develop more, and like, what's Peter doing as Spider-Man now, and how's Ned helping him out, and how does MJ factor into that? Whereas it was just like them on vacation, and fucking Ned wasn't even around for most of it. He was like, you know, just making jokes. So it felt a bit weird at points in this film, where you see him as like this close team, and it's like we never really got to see them, but like they're acting like this is how they've always been, whereas it's kind of never felt like they've never really settled.
on their team, and now they're going to their final story or whatever. Like, it just felt a bit weird in that regard. I think Far From Home does put a downer on a lot of little bits in this film for me, just because it feels like we never got the room to develop a lot of the ideas that are present. But overall, I mean, there's I think there's a lot of MCU moments, like you said, with the teachers and everything, that I think I like more because the second half of the film is what it is. If the whole film had been like Far From Home, I would have hated all of it.
Yeah.
But I think because the first half is like, this is the juvenile MCU Spider-Man stuff that we've come to know. They're having a bit of fun with it. But then you get to put him through some hardships and he comes out the other end. That I'm kind of more okay with a lot of the stuff that happens at the beginning. So I think overall it's really strong. There was like, Betty on the school news where she says like, go get him, Tiger. And it's like, yeah, okay, you didn't really need to do that, did you? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, you're referencing the line, but there's absolutely no weight to that line. And now you're never going to use the line. And it's like, that's an important Spider-Man line, but you've just kind of thrown it away there randomly for like, what reason? Is it supposed to be funny? I don't know. It's like one of those MCU Spider-Man moments where I'm like, I don't know why you did that. Just don't use it. Just don't do it at all if you're going to do it like that. But, it's whatever. I can let a lot of that shit slide, I think. Yeah.
But you talk about consequences. The big consequence of like, they're not getting into college is because he's Spider-Man, like certain things like that, like how it's affecting the real world problems. And I really was digging that early in the movie because you're starting to see Peter really understand the negative aspects. Because a lot of what Homecoming is like when people find out, it's like, oh my God, that's awesome. You're Spider-Man. Like, it's like he talks about some hard things and talks about off screen, like how, it was really hard for when, my aunt makes you really know because that was really hard when she found out. I was like, was it? Like, she found out at the end of Homecoming, and then Far From Home, she's fucking loving
never saw it.
Spider-Man. Yeah. So there's challenges that we haven't seen, the consequences we haven't seen that this movie's showing us. It's like, it's not all fucking sunshine and rainbows when people know that you're Spider-Man. And him learning that was really cool. And how it's affecting these people that he loves and he cares about, the Happies, the Mays, MJs, and Neds. Like, I dug that. And then we go to, Doctor Strange, and I don't think we really need to delve into the stuff we've seen a million times in the trailers, even the bridge scene, like the Doc Ock stuff. I was like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we've seen it a million times.
We've seen it a million times.
Yeah, it's like whatever. It was cool to see it play out in full, but like it's
yeah. But so then the next section, so they get Doc Ock. They've got fucking Lizard Man. What the fuck's his name?
The Lizard.
Well, Doctor Strange got Amazing Spider-Man 1. Dr. Connors.
Oh, Kurt Connors, yeah.
He's already been captured.
I thought you were like, they got the Lizard. What's its name? Like, it's the Lizard. What do you mean? I didn't know. I didn't realize you meant the real.
Wait, is it
name.
Yeah. So they got Dr. Connors as well, like off screen, which I'm like, that's fine. Boring villain.
Terrible villain.
Terrible
but,
villain. To be fair, so Sandman, like what a terrible villain.
Also There's potential for all of these villains. They're just, from the movies they were in, they suck,
Yeah. And they weren't that much better in this, let's be honest. Dr. Connors or Sandman. They were just there.
No. They were better in the films they were in, to be honest, and those films weren't very good either.
The standout villains, we'll get to Green Goblin, because that was next level.
Oh my God.
I thought what they did with Jamie Foxx as Shocker.
Electro, but yeah.
Electro's fucking Shocker. Wait, that's in Homecoming, they call him the Shocker.
The Shocker is in Homecoming, yeah.
The Shocker's in Homecoming. Electro.
Yeah.
I thought he was way better. Like, they made him so much better in this movie. I thought he had some great lines, some great quips, some great character moments.
Yeah, he's, I think it was an odd one because they never really explain, like, why is he completely different. But also, like, I don't really care, I guess. It's another one of those things where it's like, he's better than he was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so I can kind of overlook it. He's a bit of fun. It's whatever. Although it was a bit weird that they didn't, there was no real outright, like, why is he completely different? Like, not even, like, he looks completely different, but also he acted completely different as well. Like, he was just Jamie Foxx being Jamie Foxx. It wasn't even, like, the same character. But, like, that's fine. It's whatever. I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in another universe. You can sort of just, like, forgive it, right? Just fucking forget
Especially when the original character, like the original version, was so fucking bad that it's like, they just changed him for the better, so it's easier to watch the film because you don't want just like to write in a shit character and have him be just as shit. So I can forgive that. That makes sense.
I completely agree. Doc Ock was great. I think not better than the way they did him in Spider-Man 2, just because of the way they used him inherently, and they used him so much in trailers, but I thought he was still great because it's just a great actor, great character, really good. Now, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin has cemented himself as the best Spider-Man villain all time, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think I agree, yeah.
Because he was always obviously a great actor and very good in Spider-Man 1. Like, very, very good. I thought he was actually better here.
I think I agree, yeah.
I thought he was better here. I thought they took him to a different place that I was like, holy fuck. Like, he was so terrifying, so menacing, so evil. Like, and they played him so well, the back and forth, like the good, the bad. And I love that we got that Peter's Parker, as in Tom Holland's Peter Parker, his Green Goblin is Willem Dafoe as well. Yeah. Like, that's cool perfect. As fuck. And like, that's one of his like major, like when he fights him, you're like, holy shit, this is a legit big deal face off to see Tom's Peter fight Willem Dafoe's Goblin. Like,
it's wild. Like, Tom's Peter has a bigger connection to that Green Goblin probably than Tobey Maguire's does.
I know, dude. Isn't that crazy, man? He killed his Aunt May. Yeah, man.
Like, that's huge. Like, he has a bigger connection to this character.
Correct.
Like, there's more emotional weight to them fighting than there ever was for Tobey's Spider-Man.
Agree. Yeah.
Which is so crazy.
You never would have thought that. The way they nailed it so good. Like, him saying, he's like, I want to tear him apart. I'm like, I do.
Oh,
like,
it's so good. It's so good.
It's fucking awesome. I thought they nailed him. I thought they, like, the other villains could suck because Green Goblin they made, he's the number one villain in this movie. He's going to be the main villain, and they fucking couldn't have done it better than the way they did it. You know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's a few moments, though, I do want to talk about, because I think Norman Osborn, as just Norman Osborn in this film, was a bit weird. I think I think I understand why they did it, and I think it's to make that clear divide between Green Goblin and Norman Osborn, whereas I think in the original Spider-Man it was implied that Norman was already he wasn't like a great guy that was just like unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah,
like, he was always he's a bit of a dick. Like, he showed a lot more favoritism towards Peter Parker than he did his own son. And there was that whole aspect to his character. So that was a bit weird. Like, you see him show up and he's like a little lost puppy now in this. And you do see elements of that in the original Spider-Man, like where he's talking to himself in the mirror and like he's like cowering in fear of like the Green Goblin coming out and trying to take control and everything. So there are those elements. But then there was stuff like him stealing the donuts in the background of like an important conversation between Aunt May and Peter. And I was like, that was such a fucking MCU Spider-Man thing to do. Like, there's absolutely no need to have that. Like, he's just secretly stealing fucking donuts and they're having like an important chat.
To be honest, I didn't even notice that.
God, it was I just groaned.
I sort of think though the way I would, the way you sort of headcanon that is like he just went to another universe and can't find his son or anything. Like, that's a big fucking crazy moment. So I sort of just imagine he's rattled for a bit because he sort of came to later on, like when he's like, I'm somewhat
I'm something of a scientist myself.
I was going to say somewhat. I'm something of a scientist myself. From that moment, he went to like, he was a bit more, got his head together because he's like, this is Mr. Osborn. He's like, that's Doctor. From that moment, I feel like he was all right. I feel like he was just a bit rattled from getting rid of Goblin in his head for a bit and realizing he doesn't have a house or a family or a company or anything. So I think that's how I credit that scene. And then from there, I think he starts to come to. And even just like the scene, and it's very much a callback to how much he sort of adored Peter in Spider-Man 1 and Raimi's Spider-Man. The way he goes, if you're willing to commute between universes, like I'd love to, give you a job. Like just the way he sort of adored Tom's Peter as well. as a character, like, and doted over him a bit. I enjoyed, and you know, I mean, we don't really need to cover too much. The Doctor Strange fight, like, I mean, the first time I saw it, I was like, that's cool. Like, that was sort of cool.
I really liked that fight.
That we witnessed a Doctor Strange versus Spider-Man fight. Like, that's pretty cool to see.
I liked it specifically because I think the way Peter beat him was very comic book. Spider-Man was like, you can imagine that being in like a comic book like panel where he's like he's doing the math, and like it's like classic Peter Parker, like he wins just with like math and calculations and stuff and wins the fight. I thought that was really cool. A really good way of doing it.
I totally agree. I loved that. I think by the third viewing, I'm like, yep, seen this. Let's, you know, you just sort of, by that
it's
point,
a bit long, and it's like in
I
this
want to
rocky...
see Andrew and Toby and get to that. I want to get to Act 3. You know, by the third viewing, I was really buzzing just to get to Act 3 by that point. But that's a great scene. Let's just mention that fight. You know, collects all the villains, gets them all to Happy's apartment, and helping them all. I really liked what Aunt May was doing with Peter's character, that dynamic in this movie, like encouraging him to be the true to comic Peter Parker.
Yeah, to help people. I
like,
liked as well she was working at the feast shelter as well. That was really nice. Similar to the comics. And obviously in the Spider-Man PS4 game as well, she works there, which was really nice just to see that little thing, which was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, you see that in Far From Home. That's where she's working, right? In Far From Home. When she gets into the sort of promo thing. That's what I thought it was. That's why he's in the ad for it.
I don't know if they like officially said what she was doing, because it was just kind of like this background.
But you knew it was sort of a charity thing. You knew that. I think.
Yeah, I guess she was doing.
I think I assumed that's what it was.
Yeah, maybe it was. Maybe I just forgot. But I'm pretty sure that was like, to me, that was like, they've like, she's actually working at Feast. Like,
yeah. Well, when I think when Norman goes, I saw Spider-Man in an ad for this place, I assumed it was like, that's probably the Far From Home callback of like him doing promo.
That makes sense. That would make sense. Yeah, probably right.
They might just not have mentioned that it's Feast. They just like, May's doing a thing. But yeah, so loved her dynamic, the encouraging, you know, and that trust and that dynamic, exploring it a bit more, because they, you know, they'd explored a bit. I liked it in Homecoming and stuff.
It was good in Homecoming, yeah.
And Far From Home, non-existent really. But
I
loved it in this, and it really built up to that moment of like when Peter gets like the spider sense moment, and that the way they did that in this movie was so good, dude. Like, I think that's the moment to me the movie picks up and doesn't stop. It's 10 out of 10 from this moment on. As soon as Peter gets the spider sense, to the end of the movie, it's all systems go. We're going to fuck 100 miles an hour. And the way they shot it throughout this movie and gave him that sense of like the camera's front on in front of him and following him walking through the room, and he's trying to figure it out, and then he just finally closes his eyes and then just shoots the web at Norman. And you're like,
so good.
Oh shit. And then you just hear that's a nice little trick of yours. And then it's like, Norman? It's like, Norman's on sabbatical, honey. It's like,
it's so good,
dude. Yeah, loved it.
It's so good. That's when, you know, Willem Dafoe just like puts his absolute all into like that performance is just fantastic. Like that confrontation there between Peter and Norman when he, or between the Green Goblin when he has that. He says to him, I think they used the line in a trailer where it's like, you're struggling to have everything while the world tries to make you choose is like such a great Green Goblin line, like Spider-Man line. It's so brilliant. And that's just, that whole confrontation there, that's so tense. It's so well done.
And that fight is awesome.
It's terrific. It's so brutal. It's so visceral. Like where you've got, you know, Green Goblin laughing as he's like punching him in the fucking head. It's just terrific, like slamming each other through the floor and everything. It's just like, it's just something so different than anything we've seen before in the MCU from Spider-Man's fights. It's so brilliant.
It felt so like, I felt like Peter was vulnerable for the first time ever in this moment. This was a fight I've never felt like he was vulnerable, other than like Homecoming when he's stuck under and he's like one of my favorite scenes in Homecoming is like, come on Spider-Man, he's like digging himself out. Great moment. Like that's the only time you felt that vulnerability, or obviously Like Homecoming does it well, like in the car with Vulture. Like that Michael Keaton
Yeah,
scene. That's
yeah,
one of the great scenes all
so
time in
good.
MCU.
Yeah.
You know, good old Spider-Man. I watched it the other day and I was like, fuck, this movie's good. Like Michael Keaton's
good,
so
yeah.
good. Like to me, second best Spider-Man villain of all time is Vulture in Homecoming.
Yeah.
Because Michael Keaton as an actor is just so good. Like that movie is not nearly as good without him in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But the way, they did this where the fight, I'm like, fuck, Green Goblin's so strong and he's vulnerable, and they get down there and he's choking him, and I'm like, holy fuck. And Aunt May comes and he's holding him up, and it's just like, he's just yelling at me, he's like, run, mate, please run. And I'm like, fuck. And
Yeah,
when
you see the glider come down behind May, and you're like, you just know.
dude,
like,
I tell you what, I'm like,
happening.
there's no way she's dying. I just, honestly, I was like, there's no way. It didn't even cross my mind.
I didn't think it would happen purely because of the way the MCU's done things up to this point with Spider-Man. I was like, look, there'll be a bit of worry. You know, you'll think like maybe she's not all right, but then she's fine, and like it's this good moment for Peter, but then, you know, they end up all right in the end. I was like, there's no way there's going to be huge consequences like this, because there's just no precedent for it yet. And I think that's why it worked even better, is because you're not expecting it, and like this universe of Spider-Man, everything's worked out so well.
Exactly.
And so when it doesn't, like, and it breaks him, and like it shocks you as a viewer as well, and it hits so much more. Like, this could be, you know, to me, the best way they've ever done the with great power comes great responsibility moment
because
in the films.
It built to it. It didn't give it to you in the first 20 minutes of the movie. It built... This is his 6th appearance. You know what I mean? He's had to learn so many lessons. He's been in the Avengers. He's died and come back to life. He's been through ice. We've seen so much of him, like it or love it. And... he's learnt so much, and he's finally at this point where he's struggling, like Green Goblin said. And it works so well because it's right after Green Goblin said and really tied a knot on what Peter's going through. You're struggling to have everything you want while the world tries to make you choose. Like, you've got that in your head, that moment. You're like, wow, Peter's really... he's struggling. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to do his best, and he's not nailing it because he's living 2 different lives. And Doctor Strange says that the problem is you're trying to live 2 different lives. Like, they really nailed that as a consequence and as a problem through this movie in the lead up and build up to that moment where May looks at him and says, no, you did the right thing. You have a gift. You have power, and with great power must also come great responsibility. And I was like, holy fuck, that line has never hit harder than this moment.
Yeah, it was so brilliantly done, and I think it's crazy that you got people out there that are like saying, oh, it's dumb and it's bad because it should come from Uncle Ben. Like, it doesn't need to come from any particular person. It's the message that's important. The reason that line works is because it comes from somebody that means something to Peter Parker, and because he loses that person, because he goes through great loss, and because that line, it resonates and it has great significance in what he does moving forward. That's why that line works, and that's why that line's important. It's not because Uncle Ben says it specifically. That just is ridiculous. Correct. It was just incidentally was him. Originally in the comics, but the way it's done here, the way it's set up, the way it's delivered is so perfect, and it just, that whole scene, it just was just out of nowhere the first time I saw it. Like, it was just, you went from MCU Spider-Man to this insane fight scene that was just so visceral and aggressive, and then you just see, like, you know, May deliver that line. It's such a turning point in the film.
It's one of the great Spider-Man scenes of all time, I would argue. Like, have Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin in it, Tom's Peter from the fight to, like, what he's struggling with to getting to this turning point, and then Aunt May obviously dying, but the way they nailed that as well, like, she gets this fatal wound and gets back up, and you're like, oh no, she is fine. I believe she was fine. She delivers that line, and once she delivers that line, you go, hang on a second.
Yeah.
But that only happens when... And then she falls over, and you're like, no, they can't be doing this. And dude, I started crying. I was, like, literally in tears, like... I was emotionally moved by this scene and this moment, and Tom being upset and him, like, literally being there, and she's like, in the denial he had, dude, he performed that so well, because she's like, I'm just catching my breath. He's like, yeah, it's fine. You can catch your breath, and then we'll get you a doctor. I'm like, oh no, dude. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
And also you think back, it's not a new character for us, like we keep saying. I'm like, this dude's lost everyone already, man. He lost Tony, remembering, like, him losing, like, his mentor, his male figure, and you can hate that he was Iron Man Jr. I love that. because it's MCU. And the reason I've loved MCU Spider-Man is because I'm like, because the MCU exists and he exists in it. He can't just be the regular Spider-Man, but the MCU exists. Like, you've got to connect him. And if you're going to connect him, you may as well go all in. I loved the way they made him and made him feel important through Iron Man. But then they're giving us now that story everyone else has been after. But you had to make the arc. You had to make the connection. I feel like, other than, I like Far From Home, but you're right. Like, it's probably a bit of it should have been different. But negating that through everything else from Civil War, which I think was a perfect depiction of Peter Parker, the best up until this movie. Homecoming's great. The Avengers, he did what he did. I just have loved where we've gotten, and I just love that we got here to this moment. And then to see Aunt May and him losing her too after he's lost Tony. And he has lost Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben exists, but like, who knows how he died? He could have died from cancer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not important.
Yeah, you don't know.
You just know they went through a loss there. And just knowing that he's lost everyone. He's lost so much. And now he's losing his only parent left. And he's only still a kid. He is still a kid. He's like 17, 18 or whatever at the time. And I was emotional, man. I don't know about you. I was really emotional in that moment.
Yeah. 100% for sure. That fucking hit me. It was, especially because Far From Home was a weird one. But in Homecoming, you see Peter and May's relationship. It's really well done in that film. Like, where she drives him to the party early on, or when he's getting ready for Homecoming.
Yeah.
Like, she's teaching him like how to tie his tie and like getting him dressed and everything.
Because she's that younger version of May that's a bit like, I can like show you things and you'd actually come to me for this advice. There's no May that can do that.
Yeah, it's a really nice like relationship you see between them, and there's also like those moments where like you can see she's clearly like she doesn't want to lose Peter. So like when Peter's been out late and she doesn't know where he is and he comes back, like she's been worrying because like obviously they did lose Ben somehow, so she doesn't want to lose Peter again. And like you've got that whole aspect to it, and like you see their relationship there, and I like the way he talks to her and like tries to calm her down and stuff. So you do get that relationship. It was built up in Homecoming. They didn't do a lot with it in Far From Home, but then you get to see that continue here in No Way Home, and I just think it pays it off really well and develops it and takes it in a place that just is perfect for this version of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then you get from that moment, and this is a good time to bring up Jonah Jameson. How do you feel about how they used him through this movie? Because I thought it was phenomenal.
I think
using him as a commentator throughout the movie.
I think he's used pretty well. I don't think he's as good as he was in the Raimi films, mainly because I think he had his own little, like, there's moments in the Raimi films where I really like what they do with him in terms of like not just being like a plot point but being a character, and I like that they could do that in the future in the MCU for sure. But I like how in the Raimi films, there's a good side to
Jonah Jameson, like the scene where he protects Peter taking the photos. He's like, I don't know, they come in anonymously.
Yeah, they come in the mail, and it's like he obviously knows, but he's lying, and you see that like there's that moment, and there's the cool moment at the end of like Spider-Man 2 where like Spider-Man's gone and like he's finally got his suit hung up on the wall, and he's like Spider-Man was a hero, he's the only one that could have saved everyone. And then obviously Peter steals his suit back and he's like, oh, he's a menace and everything. But I like what they did there with the character in those films. And I think there's more you can do. There's more depth you can add. But I do like what they did in these films. I mean, J.K. Simmons is brilliant in the role. Like, he did great in those original films, and he's really good in these ones too. So I really like him. I think he's solid. And I like the new take where like he's running his own little, like he's got his own show that's kind of like, sort of meant to be a bit of a parody. Yeah, exactly. So it's I like all that. I think it works. It's very modern, and it just works in this universe. But I love that it's J.K. Simmons as well. It's not just it's not just anybody, because he's great.
I totally agree. But he does that sort of report, and there's a shot he does where you've got Peter standing in the rain looking at the big screen of Jonah Jameson. I'm like, that's such a comic book shot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is such a great moment. And it's that moment of that everyone pretty much is like, because the posters of the movie fucking suck. The only good one is that one where Peter's sort of head down in the rain looking over New York and all the signs of him. And like, it was sort of that moment of the movie where he's lost everything. And you're like, fuck, you're with that character. You're like, I emotionally right there. And then we cut to MJ and Ned, And the only way they've set up this portal, and look, I'll forgive it because we know they're never going to use it again because their memories have been wiped type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where they give Ned the ability to open portals because he's got Doctor Strange's glove thing, and they mention at the start where he's asking Doctor Strange, he's like, could I, like Nonna says I'm fuck, or whatever the word for his conscious, like grandmother, I don't know what it is. I forget. But he, says I'm magic and blah, blah, blah. And that sort of pays off to this moment. And was it silly? Yeah. But it's like, look, this is just the way they had to do it so we could get Andrew and Toby, and I'll forgive for that. Whatever. Like, how do you feel about that Ned could just open fucking portals all of a sudden?
I mean, they could have explained it as like, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't care.
It was a bit silly, but
it's kind of dumb. I mean, at this point, Ned is like a nothing character. Like, I don't know. Ned's been through some shit. Like, he's kind of like, he started off as like this character that was, he's a bit of a fucking loser. He's a bit of a dork, but he kind of steps up and helps Spider-Man in Homecoming, and I thought that was really good. But then in Far From Home, he's just like comic relief.
It's still
good. It's still funny as fuck. But in Far From Home, like, he's just kind of nothing. He's just comic relief.
Agreed.
And then in this film, he's kind of a bit of both. Like, they try and bring it back, but he's kind of like it's whatever. It's just Ned. So it works.
Like, I like
because
him. He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. Like, I don't mind seeing him. A lot of people think he's really annoying and like a terrible character, but I don't think that. I think he's fun.
Yeah.
But I think it works because it's Ned, and because it's like, well, of course Ned is secretly magic. Like,
yeah, true.
I guess he is.
I guess so. Yeah.
So I don't hate it.
So the portal opens, and you know what's coming. As soon as he goes, as soon as you can see Peter and the portal opens, you're like, okay.
Immediately, I was like, that's Andrew.
This is the moment. And the order of which, and knowing in my head, if I was going to direct this movie, which Spider-Man has to appear first, it has to be Andrew's. Mm-hmm. Because we know, as a history of the fan base, the most beloved one's Toby, and you want Andrew to have a good reaction. So you need to deliver him first, let him get some shine, and then bring Toby in, because Toby's not... You can't take away Toby's shine because Toby's the one... Most people are waiting to see, you would argue, right? There's a whole generation of kids that love Andrew Garfield, right? There are. There just are. Not as many, I would say, just based on popularity and what we know about the movies, and financially. But, Andrew comes through. He takes off the mask. I've never, in Australian cinemas, we don't cheer. We don't make noises. Like, even when Daredevil came on screen, the fact that the whole audience... big gasp happened. I was like, holy shit. I've never heard an Australian cinema do that since maybe the only time I remember, like, I feel like Australian cinemas used to do it when maybe like 20 years ago. Like, I remember when Phantom Menace Attack of the Clones was at cinemas. And I can remember like when Yoda was doing his lightsaber fight with Count Dooku. I remember audiences like going a bit wild for that. And but I've never had that. Maybe Endgame, people were like, at that, Avengers Assemble moment, people were a bit making a bit of noise. I made a fucking gasp. I was like, fuck. I'm pretty sure I said fuck yeah out loud. I couldn't help myself. You gave me my favorite, superhero of all time. I had maybe the greatest moment of all time in comic book history, like with Avengers Assemble, and he just got Mjolnir. I was literally I had jizzed in my pants 7 times by this point. So we get to this moment. And Andrew comes through, and people are like, oh my God. And then he pulls off his Andrew Garfield. The whole audience cheered and clapped and applauded. I've never seen it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, people went off. Andrew got a bigger reaction than Toby got. Maybe it's partly because everyone knew Toby was coming through, or maybe it's just this generation of comic book fans, this age, they grew up with Andrew more than Toby. I don't know. Well, I think Andrew's reveal was better than Toby's in the film. I think it was a way better reveal. Like, so much more weight to it. Like the mystery of like, wait, is it one of the other Spider-Men, or like you can't once Andrew's
quite
there,
tell.
Toby's there. Toby's
know he's coming. And also the way Toby comes through is like, I mean, I have some things to say about this scene. I don't love it.
Okay.
But I think. In a way, it works because it's Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is that, neighborhood hero. And I think doing it on the scale of like an Endgame would have been a bit too dramatic, although I would have loved it.
But I think I like this way. To me,
the fact that they show up in Ned's grandmother's apartment and like they're just having a bit of a laugh. To me, it works in a way because it is very Spider-Man. It's almost like those scenes you would get in, like, you know, Aunt May's house in the Raimi films, like, where it's just these characters and they're together. It's a bit more silly and it's a bit more MCU, but I kind of think it works as Spider-Man, almost like it's out of a comic or out of like one of the animated shows from the 90s or whatever, like where it's just this, it's not like them epically swinging through a portal, you know, in the middle of a big fight or whatever and coming in to save the day. It's like, it's Spider-Man. It's just a bunch of guys in a house. And I think that does work. Although, I do think the way Toby entered was a bit weird, because Andrews was, like, really fucking cool. But when Toby, he just kind of walks through and is like, it's just weird.
I'll tell you why I liked it, because they played, and it's actually, I love that they did this. I was worried they were going to bring Toby and Andrew in and make them look young, and they're taking them from their movies. I like that they took them from where they would be now. Toby comes through and he's 40. He's a 40-year-old, been Spider-Man for 20 plus years, and he probably isn't doing as much Spider-Maning as he was. So he's in his regular clothes, and he sort of walks around, he's calmer, he's at peace, like he's been through everything. He's the wise one. He's the wise one. So I like that he came through very just like, oh, you know, hey, how's it going? I'm sure he's a dad, you know what I mean? Like, he's a father, all those sorts of, like, it felt very much like that weight of a character. So I like that side of things. Whereas Andrews, we know the last time we left him, he's gone through a lot of heartache, and he's sort of a solo, has no one character as well. We never got to see his payoff of how he recovered as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. So him coming through the way he did felt very, to me, it felt like the characters where they needed to be. I like that Toby comes through, and he's the one that says, he's like, look, I'm here because I just have this sense that your friend needs me. And then Andrew goes, us. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's, and this is what I love, the way they did Toby straight away. I'm like, I'm adoring this way they're doing Toby, because he's old. He's an old creepy guy playing a young guy. No. He's just an old guy playing an old guy. And I'm like, yeah, fine. That's fine with me. This is so fine with me. This is exactly how he should be played. And he's like being the old wise one. He's being the mentor. I'm like, if they bring Toby in, this is how they have to do it. Don't try to make him young and like you're taking him from like Spider-Man 2 or something that fucking piss me off. Like, this was great.
Yeah, the best way to do it, for sure.
And he was just like, he didn't need, Toby's character didn't need to have payoff moments necessarily, in the sense of like, his story's over and let's just use him as a great, like, see him at a stage we never got to see him at, and use that as a great plot device for our current characters. Whereas Andrew's Peter Parker, Andrew's Spider-Man, we didn't finish his story. He has character moments that need closure, and they gave it to us. Like, so I felt like they nailed both in the right ways, where they didn't overdo Toby. They used him perfectly, and they paid off Andrews and made him, like, really did him right, because Sony did him wrong, and Marvel Studios have really done him right here, and he'll be remembered fondly as Spider-Man now forever. I think all three of them will, and I feel like this debate who's the best Spider-Man's fucking null and void after this movie now as well. Like, who gives a shit? Like, they're all awesome.
They're all terrific,
we love them all, you know, and they've all been together. Like, you can't take that away. You know, if they all like each other, you know what I mean? Fuck you. You can't hate on them.
I think as well, something that I like about them coming together is that if you watch, like, say, like an old Spider-Man cartoon or whatever, like Spider-Man the Animated Series or whatever, they'll do episodes where they have a bunch of Spider-Man team up, and you don't know these other ones, you just know the one that's been in the show from the start. So you get to meet all these other Spider-Men, and, like, it's interesting and it's cool, because it's like there's these weird different Spider-Men that, like, went down different paths and had different lives.
Same thing of Into the Spider-Verse as well.
And yeah, the same with like Into the Spider-Verse. But what I really like about this film is that I think it solidifies their differences being valid more, because when you just watch them isolated, you find issues with them, and you're like, you know, why isn't this one? Because you're seeing them as comic book adaptations. Whereas now, after this film, I think you can see them more as individual, these very different Spider-Man, but still at the core is Spider-Man. Because you look at, like, The Amazing Spider-Man, and, like, as a comic adaptation, there's things they do well, but then there's things that are like, well, that's a bit weird, and, like, why is he skateboarding, and, like, there's stuff like that. But then when you look at it from the aspect of, like, well, it's just one of, like,
this is not right.
Exactly. Why is he just ridiculously attractive? But you,
and pretty
but when
awesome.
you look at it, Yeah, but when you look at it from like the perspective of No Way Home and like these infinite multiverses, it's like, well, yeah, that is a possibility that you could have for a Spider-Man, but we just got to see more of it in his individual film, and I just really like that, and I think for me it makes me sort of appreciate more the Amazing Spider-Man films, sort of not really be so hung up on the things that I didn't like. The same for, issues I might have had with, Raimi's films, not that I have many issues, and the issues that I also had with, like, the MCU stuff as well. There's certain issues that I might have had where I'm like, well, this is just one of, like, infinite possibilities for a Spider-Man, but at its core, they're all Spider-Man. Yeah. And I think this movie did a lot of work to make that feel right, and I like that.
And really, like, they're almost in the face of the fans going, shut the fuck up about who's better. They're all awesome. Like, shut up. Yeah. It doesn't matter. They're all amazing. It doesn't matter, yeah. And I just loved the way they did so many little things in this. Because we're at the point now, now that they're in. And something little, because I honestly fucking loved MJ in this movie. So much better than anything they've done with her. I loved the relationship dynamic. I loved how she was. I loved the chemistry. And in the scene where Andrew comes through, he says to Peter Parker, and she's so defensive of her Peter, that she's like, crawl around. That's not, what I mean? Like, just a little thing from Brett. Yeah. I'm like, it is a bit MCU humor, but what I was seeing it as was, I'm like, this is a very defensive person of her partner. And I'm like, I dig the way they're doing that. Like, she's not a pushover character. She, like... she'll, if there's anything we've learnt from Michelle, in this trilogy, it's that she's a bit of a, she's the loner and she's not a scared, like, damsel in distress character. And they treat her like that in this movie, where they made her a bit more of that, she's the girlfriend character, but she's still like, I'm going to defend Peter. I know he's a superhero, but you're not fucking, I'm going to help him. I just dug that about her character, and I loved her in this scene particularly more than Ned.
Ned's just there, but that's all right. He is always just there. It's Ned. And
Zendaya's also a phenomenal actress as well. Like, just quietly, she's also a very good actress. And in this next scene is one of my favorites of the way she delivered the line. It felt so real and raw. So, like, her and Ned come up to Peter on the roof and hug him, and it's just this cool, like, these are the only family he's got left. This is it. This is all he's got left in his life are these two people. And just hearing MJ, the way she delivered the line of like, oh, there's people here. And it's just this, like,
that
very...
line, I knew you were going to say that. That line is really good, the way that she delivers it,
She delivers that so cleanly. And then he gets up all defensively because he's like, who the fuck's here? And you see that look up to the roof of the building scene, and you've got two Spider-Men there, and it's like, holy shit. Oh, and that moment, Peter realizes, so oh my God, these are Spider-Men. These are me.
Yeah.
He's like, whoa. And, Andrew going, because we have to refer to them as, like, their acting names, because they're the same fucking character names. Yeah, because they're the same character, so Andrew, goes, I've got some idea of what you're going through, and Tom's like, don't try to tell me you understand. He's like, okay, I won't. And Andrew's fucking acting in this scene, dude.
Oh,
he's getting
emotional,
he's getting choked up.
It's great as well because Peter's always said, like, it's a core thing of the character. Like, they bring it up in Spider-Man PS4, is that people always try to say to him, like, I know what you're going through. And Peter's always like, they don't know what I'm going through, though. No one knows what I'm going through. And I think that moment between them is so good because it's like a callback to something they've not really brought up in these films, but that is a core part of Peter's character, is that Peter's saying, like, you don't know what I'm going through, and that Peter knows. He's like, that's exactly how I felt. Like, no one knows what I'm going through because it's completely different.
You're now with two people that are the only two people that do know what you're going through, because we're also Peter Parker and we're also Spider-Man. And the way, like, Andrew sort of comes in first and like, look, I lost Gwen, my MJ, and the way he delivered that, and again, it felt like in some ways this is the best. This is the Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like, this is the payoff you're going to get from, if you're a fan of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and you feel like, man, they didn't finish our Spider-Man, our Peter Parker story. This is them finishing it. Like, they really, like, threw into you straight away how he's still feeling, and him talking about, I got rageful, I stopped pulling my punches. You're like, okay, now we're talking about, now you're setting up a payoff to a character we haven't finished with yet. I love that. Give me more. So they nailed that scene with him, showing Andrew's character really developing there. And I love how he performed. I love how he acted. And then you got Toby, who being the old wise Spider-Man that I just loved the way they did it. And him talking about, what he went through, and he was like, I'm sorry about May. Because they're like, we have a May too. We get it. Like, and I'm sure May's dead because of old age.
At least for Toby.
At least for Toby. So he's like, I'm sorry about May. And a thing, and the way Toby also performed really well in this movie was he didn't need to get emotional because of the stage of life he's at. You knew what he's been through. But he's got a calm peace to it. He's like, I've been through so much, and I'm so much older now and gone through it that I'm not going to sit here and like Andrew's still upset about Gwen. Fair play. It's been a couple years. You know what I mean? Like, but with Toby, it's been so long. He's like, look, he's lost May. He's lost Ben. He's lost a lot, but he's good with it. Like he's got his closure and with everything he's done.
I liked his performance in the way that everything he said, it looked like he was considering what he was saying before he said it. It felt like he was really thinking about, like, what is he trying to say? And, like, trying to get that out. Like, the way that he says, like, when he talks about his past, he's like, I lost my Uncle Ben. I tracked down the man that I thought did it because I wanted revenge or whatever. And he's like, but it didn't make it better. And just the way that it's just, there's so much sincerity to that, I think.
Yeah.
And it just worked really well to sort of get this message across to Tom Holland, the actor.
But Tom in the scene as well equally nailed his performance of like how upset he is. And his line where he goes, I want to tear him apart. I'm like, dude. Like they all had great lines in this moment of like relating to, they've all lost someone. And the whole like, May said with great power, and then Toby's like, comes great responsibility. Ben said it, like Michael Ben said it. And it's like, wow, they have that moment. And Toby goes, maybe she didn't die for nothing.
Yeah, like they all sort of look at each other and they realize, like, that although they're different, they are all Spider-Man. And I think that's sort of the moment that makes it work. And they're all like, that's when they're all on the same page, sort of thing. And I think that's really nice.
And realizing that with great power comes great responsibility, they've put even more weight to that line because they realize this isn't just a line for me. This is something that's important to be said to Peter Parker in every universe. This is a line that's important to be said. And like you said, it doesn't matter who says it. For two of them, it was Ben. For one of them, it's Aunt May. Both of them are like the most important parent figures in his life. And it was one of them that delivered it to him, and they all died when they delivered it. So it's that shared moment of like, that's a turning point as a person that they had, and now you've got. Now I want you to know that it wasn't for nothing because we went through it too, and that was important to hear. So it just added that, and then they're like, all right, let's get to work then. Let's do it. And they all get in the lab, and then you get that cool down moment where they're all together, and you get the small scenes. And it's like, I'm so glad they chose to do this. They didn't rush into this final battle. They cooled us off and let us enjoy some character moments all in a room. It's like a Mass Effect game before the big battle where you get to sort of chat to all your squad. You know what I mean? And like sort of pay off those character moments for everyone right before you go into that final battle. Like it just felt like that cool down moment in a video game before a big battle. And I love that they did it because you got so many moments with all the characters. What were your standout lines from that sort of in the school lab moment?
I think one of my favorite parts was where you see Tom and MJ, and they're like having a little moment together, and she's like reassuring him, and they're just sort of,
loved it.
Just talking to each other. It was just a really nice moment. And then it cuts to another shot, and you see Andrew staring over at them, like he's looking at them, they're in love, and he's thinking about Gwen, obviously. And that's when Toby's like, do you have anyone? And they talk about, what's going on as them. And like Andrew says, like, he doesn't have time for Peter Parker stuff. And Toby's talking about like how him and MJ sort of made it work, even though it's complicated. And that's really nice because you get to hear sort of that closure as well. So like what happened after Spider-Man 3, like, did MJ and Peter stay together, or did that end up, falling apart? But you get to, find out that they made it work.
Yeah.
And I just think that moment works, and just the way that Toby sort of like, there's always another chance. You can always find someone,
and that's what I loved,
giving Andrew that hope.
He didn't just he didn't just come to mentor Tommy. Also was there as the older Spider-Man for Andrew as well, which was really nice.
Yeah, that was really good.
And that's why, I just thought Toby nailed it. They nailed him in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked him as Spider-Man. I've just never liked him. And I adore him in this. I just this is exactly how I always wanted him to be played. And I really enjoyed that. And like you said, I think the key to his performance was it felt like every line he was thinking about what he was going to say before he said it, which is not what a young Peter Parker does. The opposite. All Peter Parker does is just say what comes to his fucking head. Even when he's in a suit, that's such an inherent Peter Parker Spider-Man quality. And what I love about Toby is what would it be like when he's 40 and lost, gone through everything? It's I actually think about what I say before I say it now. That's an important lesson in life for everyone to learn. And you see that. So it was cool to see different stages of Peter Parker's life.
Yeah. And I also like as well that this version of an older Peter Parker, you get a sort of similar thing in Into the Spider-Verse where you got an older Peter Parker and he's sort of disillusioned with being Spider-Man. I like that Toby's Peter isn't that. I like that he's still at his core is Spider-Man and believes in all the ideals and still is sort of that beacon of hope as well.
If anything, he's better than he ever was in that way. He felt even more hopeful, even more we're here to do the right thing. We're here to cure them. That's what we do. We're not going to kill anyone.
Yeah. And that was really terrific.
Yeah, agreed. In that moment, I really loved, I agree with you, that moment between Toby and Andrew was fantastic. I loved the web scene, finding out that Toby shoots webs out of his body and shit.
Yeah. I loved Andrew's performance there. Just the way he did the joke where he was just how does that even as he's leaning in to be he's really curious as to how Toby just makes web in his body. I think that was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a good moment.
Yeah. And that was very MCU. And I don't mean that as an insult. I actually really enjoyed it. So do you have a best friend too? And he's yeah, my best friend.
I hated that.
Did you hate
fucking hated that.
No, I like it.
Yeah, because they play it off as a joke. Because I like that it's not from Toby's point of view. I mean, what he says also isn't true. He says, I did have a best friend. He died in my arms after he tried to kill me. He actually died in his arms after he saved him from Venom. But, it's whatever, I guess. Yeah. But it was just a bit weird because, it kind of made light of Harry's sacrifice. And that was a really big moment in, an otherwise not very good film.
Terrible movie. Yep, who cares?
But those character moments are still so strong. And I love, that is a big moment for Harry and for his relationship with Peter. And, that movie closes pretty much just, with Harry dying in Peter's arms. That was a big moment, but they just kind of make it a meme, and it was just a bit weird.
I'll tell you why I liked... If there was just that, I get what you're saying, but the way they paid it off 2 minutes later was, I thought, really funny. And it was an Andrew moment for me, where... Ned comes up to Tom and he goes, I promise you, when he's wait, you can do magic? Yeah, I do magic now. He's I promise I won't turn into a supervillain and try to kill you. And then he's okay. And then it sort of focuses back into Toby and Andrew does the pat on the shoulder and the nod. I really that. I was fuck, that's funny. That was just a cool moment.
That moment works, but I think you could have done that still and had it been funny without having Ned look like a bewildered fucking deer in headlights in that moment. When Toby's saying it, have that be an emotional moment for Toby, then have that funny scene with Ned, and I think it would have not dampened the other scene, but still would have been funny.
Yeah.
It's a nitpick, really, more than anything, but I love those films, so it does make me feel a bit weird that they decided to turn it into a joke. So, that's just one of the things. Other than that, there's not many issues I have with their portrayal of these characters, and I think Toby, for the most part as well, he doesn't lean into MCU humor, and neither really does Andrew. It's difficult to explain the way they wrote these characters. Is that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was never really a very funny character.
No,
and
never.
He's not very.
There's a
funny
compilation
in this
on
either.
YouTube of Spider-Man saying funny lines as Spider-Man, and Toby has one line, and it's not even funny. I get the whole compilation. I'm that's not funny, and I'm but that's Toby's portrayal.
Yeah, that's his Spider-Man, and I think they do that well in this. He's not just suddenly making jokes and being an MCU character. He feels like the same character, but in the MCU. So funny things happen around him, but he's not inherently like making jokes, and I think that works really nicely. I just think it was really, really good. And obviously Andrew like works perfectly here because his Spider-Man was always really funny. So like,
and he's a theater actor, Andrew. So like he's very the way he moves his body and the way he's very dramatic, and I thought they did all that really well. I thought they did all that really, really well. And even just a line of like, so you're going to go into battle dressed as a cool youth pastor? Or like, I was like, yeah, this is fucking, I was just having a great time watching these three together on screen. And I just felt like they were good together, like you said, they were nailing the portrayals of all the characters all at once, not trying to make them all MCU ones. They're like, no, this is Andrew's Spider-Man still. This is Toby's Spider-Man still. This is Tom's Spider-Man still. Like the way they're portrayed, and they bring them all in there, and now the Statue of Liberty that's getting the Captain America shield put onto it, with all the scaffolding, and then you still get even more cool character moments of like they're all in the suits, and it's like, oh, my back, like the back moment, that funny scene. Andrew went, oh, I always wanted brothers. This is so cool, and you're like, oh,
that was so nice.
I love that for Andrew. I just love that for him.
I loved it because like him obviously feeling so alone in his own universe.
Yeah,
and, like,
I know. Yeah.
Feeling like how he must have felt as a character, and like then getting to meet two other versions of himself, like giving him that like confidence that I guess he needed was really, really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just him and Toby getting some moments together where it's not even really Tom there. I was like, that's pretty cool to see those two together. And then, Tom going, what are the best villains you guys have fought? I love that.
Yeah,
of course, what a great conversation for three Spider-Men to have. They're like, what are some of the best villains you've fought? And, then Toby's reaction of like, I'm just still stuck in the whole you went to space thing. Like, he's like, I'm pretty lame. Yeah. I've fought a Russian guy in a rhinoceros suit.
Yeah.
And then he's like, wait, what's the whole I'm lame thing? And I love the leaning into Andrew Spider-Man getting so much internet hate out of all like the least amount of credit of all the Spider-Man, and them leaning into it's like, no, you're amazing. I want you to hear you say, you are amazing. And having Toby say it, I was like, this is such an in your face
it's perfect.
to so many fans that are Toby fans that are like, fuck Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and you got Toby sitting there like, you are amazing. I was like, I love this. I fucking love it. He's like, no,
it was perfect.
I needed to hear that. Like, and even the moment, and maybe my favorite bit of the whole performance of Andrews was when they're like, okay, Peter 1, Peter 2, and then they go to point to him, and he's like, Peter 3. Like he's like, yeah, I get it. I'm everyone's least favorite. Like, I just loved how endearing they made Andrew's character in this. Like, it was fucking awesome.
It was so good.
Just every dynamic with them was fucking amazing.
It was terrific. And I love as well that whole, so they're doing the final battle scene and they have like their little back and forth beforehand, and then they go into the fight and you get to see them like trying to take out these guys, and they sort of regroup and realize like they're not fucking getting anywhere. And I love that moment because you have, them all realizing, oh, we've never worked in a team before. And that's when Tom Holland's Peter steps up and is like, well, I have worked in a team before. And he gets to take the lead, and he gets to lead those two into the fight. And like, there's the moment where he's like, oh, I was in the Avengers, and Toby's like, that's great. What is that? That's a really, funny moment.
No, I thought that was a funny moment. It's like, wait, is that a band? Are you in a band? Like,
yeah.
That's what I love about
good little moment there.
And it's just, again, way they nail those characters is, of course, Tom's bragging about being in the Avengers because that's a very Tom Holland Spider-Man thing to do. You've got Toby's character that's sort of like, look, good for you, but let's fucking focus on what's happening right now. And then you got Andrew that's just sort of so excited about having friends. Like that he's like everything like Toby does. He's like, man, you're so cool. Everything Tom's doing, he just wants to be like, oh, that's so cool. He's like their biggest fan. He's like, you're in a band?
It's really cool, and I like that. But then getting to see, Tom step up, take the lead, and at that point and be like, I'm the one that's worked in a team, so I'm going to coordinate us, was like that big moment for his Spider-Man as well, to be like front and center main character. And then you see them run off the edge of that thing, and they jump, and they're swinging together, and like they're all coordinated. And there's a fucking cool moment where Tom jumps through the air, and Andrew and Toby both like web him, and Tom like pulls them round. It was so fucking cool. I didn't notice that till the second time I watched it, but it was so fucking cool. And then you see them all land on the Statue of Liberty, and it's like, oh, just fucking brilliant.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. This is like, I did not think it would. The Avengers Endgame moment of like Avengers Assemble, I'm like, there'll not be another moment like this for 10, 15 years before you have something that pays off that well. And though I don't think this was that level, this was fucking close. And I can't believe it only took 2.5 years to get something of that level in the MCU that felt like it was that long of a payoff. Like, because like, well, there's nothing that could be done that's 20 years of payoff like that Marvel did with Endgame. But I'm like, no, there is. It's, you bring all the Spider-Man back. That's 20 years. That's 20 years of payoff of 3 generations of Spider-Man, their villains, their Spider-Man, their characters all together, and make it work. Like, the fact they made this work is Kevin Feige's a fucking genius. Every time you think, surely they're going to fuck it up now, there's too much going on. He, like, dude, he's a god. He's a god. Like, how the fuck did he nail this? How did he nail this movie? Something should have gone wrong. There was too much going on in this movie. That's why my fear was like, they've got to fuck this up. There's no way they can nail it. How did they do this? How did they get these 3 Spider-Men perfectly done, in characters, perfectly written, perfectly performed, and have those moments where they're all together, they're fighting all these villains off, and working together as a team, and, you know, they take them all down. Doc Ock, it's a good guy, comes in. You love to see it. And then finally, Green Goblin shows up and fucks everything up. It was just, the whole battle was fun. It was great to see them all working together. It was cool to see all moments for all of them with, you know, Toby in the Raimi suit swinging around.
Oh, it looks so good.
It looked great. It did look great. And Andrew, you know, it felt like you're watching an Amazing Spider-Man movie. It's like when he's talking to Electro, he's like, "Oh, hey, missed you, buddy." Like, it's just
and it's like, just, it feels like they're straight out of those films. Like, nothing feels wrong or off. Like, it's just done in such a good way. And I love that they each get a moment with their, like, respective villains, where you've got, like, you know, Toby curing, like, Sandman, and, like, the music as well, where it plays from each of their films as well. Like, that's another thing. Throughout this film, the soundtrack has been perfect. There is, like, no, like, it's one of the best MCU films for soundtrack, in my opinion. Like, the way that at the right points they mix in MCU themes and, like, tracks with stuff from the Raimi movies or the Amazing Spider-Man films, like, at appropriate moments. Like, there's a moment where I think it's when they bring Norman into the Sanctum, you've got, it's like the Doctor Strange music, like, mixed with the one of the tracks from the Raimi films, and, like, it's so nice. It sounds great, and there's some great moments at the end of the film during the fight, like, you know, where Toby has his moment with Sandman, and you got that, you know, the Raimi theme playing, and, like, where you've got Andrew talking to Electro, and you've got the Amazing Spider-Man theme playing in the background, which is really nice, and they have that little moment together. And the little, like, nod to, like, Miles Morales as well, where he's like, you know, I thought you'd be black or whatever. And it's like, there's got to be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. It's like, you know, a nice little bit there. And one of my favorite moments was the moment with Doc Ock, where he can't be like, and Toby, where he's like, "You're all grown up, like, how are you?" And Toby's line is trying to do better, which is his line from Spider-Man 2 that he said to Otto right at the start of the film when he meets him for the first time, which is just a really nice little callback. The music is brilliant. Oh, such a moment. Definitely fucking brought tears to my eye. It was mental.
And the way I feel like all 3 Spider-Men got a moment with their main villains, because it's like you said earlier. So to me, Toby's Spider-Man, Doc Ock, was way more personal to his character as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, because one massive villain, Doc Ock versus Spider-Man, but also Octavius to Peter. Like, that was a big connection. So them having a payoff moment was amazing, and it being a good version of it. You know, Electro and Andrew. But the fact that when we talk about Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, that's actually Tom's. That's fucking crazy.
That's huge. And they did all the legwork in this film. Like, it's just kind of insane how they did it, and they did it so well to a point where, like, you believe it at the end. Like, you believe that
their face-off is like, holy shit, this is a big deal face-off. There's so much personal anger, but you can't forget that moment of, like, you have that payoff with Toby and have his little moments, but you literally wrapped up Andrew's story and character by having him save MJ. Like when,
so good.
When Tom jumps off, all I'm thinking is, please somehow stop him and have it be Andrew. It's gotta be Andrew. It has to be Andrew. And then
it had to be.
Toby gets knocked midair, and you're like, this is it. This is it. Andrew jumps off, grabs her, and the whole audience was cheering. Like, what a fucking
there was gasps in
moment.
the audience, like people knew, and it was so like just the way that like he asks MJ, he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah," and then she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like fucking crying. Like it's so good. Andrew's performance was amazing.
Oh, dude, they gave him his. Sony fucked that guy so hard with his movies. Like they just screwed him over. They cancelled his shit. Like they did him so dirty. They did him so dirty, and then it took like 12 months, and they cast Tom Holland and replaced him. Like he was just so thrown aside by Sony, and the fact they got to bring him in and wrap up his story and give him that shine, perfect. Let him ride off in the sunset, and let us all remember Andrew Spider-Man fondly with that. To me, that's how I feel. I don't need to see him come back ever again. Like
I wouldn't mind, you know.
It's not
honestly.
it's not that I wouldn't mind it because I'd love to see him, but I'm like, you might ruin it. Don't ruin it. It's perfect.
Yeah, I guess I'm worried because it's not going to be Marvel Studios. It's going to be Sony behind this.
Kevin Feige won't be involved. Don't do it. Leave him alone.
I think if there was no doubt in my mind that it would be a solid, really good film, then I'd say go for it, do an Amazing Spider-Man 3. But I am, like you say, I'm concerned that it's going to be Sony behind it, and I don't like those Sony films. There's a lot of people that do, you know, a lot of people really like Venom and they're hyped for Morbius somehow. But
oh my god, Morbius looks like the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, do you know what I love about the fucking trailer is there's enough expositionary dialogue in the whole film that they could make a trailer just out of Morbius quotes from the film that explain the film. Like it's gonna be so shit. It's gonna be so bad.
I know.
But
it's awful.
Yeah.
And Venom's awful, and I don't want it.
Venom is, yep.
And the fact they confirmed in this movie with the post-credit scene that Venom's not a part of the MCU universe, I'm like, thank God. They
got rid of him.
They nailed it even more. Like, I'm like, somehow they perfected this movie by also letting you know, by the way, this Venom is not in this universe. And I'm like,
I like to think that at the end of Venom 2, Amy Pascal snuck in that scene where Venom goes into the MCU, and then Kevin Feige in this movie just snuck in a scene where he goes out of the MCU again. It's just like them back and forth secretly.
Yeah, I love that. I was just like, that's so great. So fucking great. I just adored the way they paid off Andrew. I was like, I also cried at that moment. That was the moment I got emotional because I liked Andrew. And as I said at the start of this podcast, I liked Andrew as Spider-Man. And I enjoyed the first Amazing Spider-Man, and I thought it was solid. And I am a big Emma Stone fan, so I liked the Gwen character in that dynamic. And the Amazing Spider-Man
their relationship was always so compelling in both those films.
Yeah,
like,
so
they had really, really good chemistry.
That was the best part of the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It was the only really good part of this Amazing Spider-Man 2 was Andrew and Emma Stone's chemistry, Peter and Gwen together. Like that relationship was really strong. And obviously they were together in real life, so that chemistry sort of crosses over. That's why it was just so strong and so believable. So that loss, I'm like, I believe that. And Andrew's such a great actor. Like the way he played off that loss at the end of the movie, you're just like far out. Like you want to see him recover. And that's that moment, the redemption moment of like, you saved Tom's MJ. You stopped that from happening to another Peter Parker. You did that. You know, like that's what a moment. What a special fucking moment for him. So I'm really just glad they did that for him. Paid off his character, tied in a bow. And that then leads us to Tom's final battle with Green Goblin on Captain America's shield. Like, having that fun. Like, and the way they just did a few shots, it felt like, I'm like, this is like the end to it felt like the end of a trilogy final face-off. The way they shot it, and where they had shots of like, Peter just like all bloodied and just like, I want to tear this guy apart. I'm going to kill this guy. Like there's nothing left. They're just everything in the tank, throwing punches, and then goes to pick up the
oh my god, it's so good.
The glider, and you're like, holy shit. And then Toby jumps in, and he doesn't need to say anything, is what I loved. He just gave him the look, and then he puts it down, and then I'm like, oh god, I know what's about to happen. And then Toby gets stabbed, and you're like, fuck.
I was scared for a minute there.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was concerned.
Yeah.
But thankfully he didn't die.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah, we're all a bit concerned. But then he throws in the line. He's like, oh, that's all right. I've been stabbed before. He's like, oh, good. Oh,
yeah,
good.
That's
like,
good. Yeah, he has been stabbed before.
And then, obviously, Tom's Peter, actually end up curing Goblin. And he's like, what have I done? And that moment. But then, the three Spider-Men are together for that final moment, You know, and how did you, and what were your feelings? That they had the hug moment, and we didn't even mention that Andrew's like, "I love you guys, thank you."
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, every line felt iconic. Every line felt memorable when those three were together.
Really
I'm like, this is special. Every line was like, this is important.
Yeah. I really like as well in that moment where Tom's gonna go kill Green Goblin with the glider, and Toby jumps in to stop it. Is like a nice moment because obviously the way that the Green Goblin died in his world was being killed by his glider, and like he jumped out the way, he feels somewhat responsible, like Harry blamed him and all of that stuff. So like seeing him jump in to stop the glider from killing Norman Osborn was sort of like this poignant moment for him as well, in retrospect. So that's really nice as well.
And can't forget Goblin also putting the nail in the coffin of like why it's not good to have someone you love know that you're Spider-Man. He just kept saying, he's like, I might have struck the blow, fault. But it was your fault that she died. She was there because of you. You brought her into it, you know, and all that. And it's like, there was just that Green Goblin really pushing Peter over the edge as a character. Like, they used him so well as a villain for Tom's Peter that now to me, when I think of Green Goblin and Willem Dafoe, I'm like, that's Tom's Peter's main villain, and he's the one that changed his character forever. And as a device, like as a plot device, wasn't just a villain that was cool in the movie. It also changed and gave the character huge development, the biggest development he's had in 6 films.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a huge thing about Spider-Man stories as well, is that the best stories, and this is why Homecoming is really strong, is they always come from when Peter and Spider-Man's lives sort of intersect, and like you get the characters that Peter knows in real life, you know, against, you know, the characters that Spider-Man has to face, and like that coming to a head. And that's why Homecoming works so well with the Vulture and everything. And that works really well here, because with Green Goblin knowing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and then that causing him to lose Aunt May, like you got this inner conflict there of, you know, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and that whole thing. And I think that works really nicely. And the fact, again, that they did like this whole dynamic in one film, with so much else going on, and it works so well, is just incredible.
No, 100%. It's just, I can't believe this film exists. It's so absurd how good. Like, I couldn't believe how good it was. That's what I kept saying when I was like, people were like, what do you think? I'm like, I just can't believe how good the movie was. I can't believe they did that. I never in my wildest dreams, I'm like, if they nail this, they somehow exceeded my imagination. Like, I really hope they just nailed this. I really hope they nailed this. This was better than that. This was better than I could have ever imagined it being. Because they didn't just nail Tom's Peter and like where he's going next. They didn't just nail using all these past Spider-Man and all these other multiverse things, and they didn't overdo it. They also nailed the villain and how that affected Peter. And, you know, him making a sacrifice where the world's about to have this massive collision with the multiverse. Doctor Strange is back in the picture. He's trying to stop it, and he goes, what if they forget who I am? What if everyone forgets Peter Parker? And I love that moment. I actually love that Doctor Strange moment where he's like, and it's subtle, and people might not have picked up on it, but Doctor Strange goes, he says, everyone that loves you and knows you, we won't know you. And he says we, as in, I'm someone that loves you. You know? And I'm like, that's
I love
nice.
that. I love that. Because he's like stumbles between it as well. Because he says like, you know, everyone that knows and loves you, and then like he stops and he's like, we won't remember you or whatever. He's like saying, you know, that I love you and I care about you. It's a really, really good moment. Yeah.
It's like, you know, we've literally saved the universe together. You know, those two had been through a lot, you know, from Infinity War and Endgame. And I think Strange also respected Tony a lot, and how much Tony loved the kid. So I think there was a bit of that, like, there's a lot of connections between, you know, Peter as an Avenger and what he's done and what he's gone through at such a young age, able to do that. I think everyone has a lot of love and respect for him in the Avengers. So, you know, and you saw that early in the movie, like how much he was sympathizing for Peter's situation, why he wanted to help him in the first place, and how he was moved by, like, this kid doesn't want to do this for himself. He's trying to do it for his loved ones. Like, yeah, I'll help you. I'll do what I can. But then he's like, okay, you know, it's nice knowing you, Spider-Man. He's like, yeah, call me Steven and all that sort of stuff. And he's like, better go say goodbye. And, you know, says goodbye to Andrew and Toby, and they all hug. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's just a great little moment.
You know, how good. That was an earned hug. That wasn't a forced, these guys, like, these Peters are all bonded. Like, that was a earned moment. They've just been through the ringer together to do Peter Parker, Spider-Man, cool shit together. And it just felt right. It just felt like this is a special moment that can't be redone. Can't be done better. Can't be redone.
Yeah. It's perfect.
You know, and then the goodbye with MJ, dude.
Oh my god.
Dude.
That moment hit me more the second time, purely because I knew what would happen after it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So hearing the words
Agreed.
they say to each other, where like they're saying goodbye and like. And
she's
he says,
like,
I'm going to find you, I'll explain it.
Yeah, and she's just
like, what if I don't remember? Like, I'll just figure it out again. I've done it before. And that moment where she's like, I love you, and he's about to say it back, and she's like, no, wait until you see me again.
Oh, dude,
that hit me the second time so much. Because I'm like,
that was the third cry. May,
he's not going to.
Andrew saving MJ, and then it was this. I was just in tears. I was just a mess.
Yeah. It was so good. It was so good, and their performances were just brilliant. It was just such like I was the first time I watched it, I was just sort of stunned because I was like, how is this happening? Like, how is it's so serious? It's got so much emotional weight. Like, there's got to be a dumb joke in a minute. Like, Ned's got to say something stupid in a minute.
Yeah.
But it never happened.
They
just let it
too.
play out, and it's like, oh my god, like they're real characters that are like allowed to feel real things. Like, that's what Spider-Man should be about. Yeah. Like, Spider-Man's funny and it's whimsical and crazy, but like these emotional moments are what make Spider-Man so compelling to me as like a character in these stories and like comics and TV shows and the other films and stuff. And like getting to see that for Tom Holland Spider-Man was just so much like such a special moment. And it worked really well. And like seeing that he was finally, these consequences were going to hit him, that, you know, he caused this, and he's got to live with these consequences now, despite being the hero, and he ended up saving everybody and everything. Yeah. And it worked really nicely.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it was such a raw, emotional moment. The way it was shot, the music, and the fact that, like, in Far From Home, the MJ Peter first kiss was so shit. Like, it's such a like a weird peck, like awkward teenage thing they were trying to do. I'm like, I guess so.
Yeah, it's supposed to be funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, but this was like that I love you relationship kiss moment had weight. It was just, they nailed it, and I was emotional for them both. Like, and MJ sitting there like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to not remember. This is not. I don't want this. I don't want this. Like, this is like not remember this. Yeah, it's not an option. And it's just like, holy shit, there's so much weight to this moment. And then he just swings off, and you're like, oh my god, the spell gets cast, and then cut to Jonah Jameson describing like what Spider-Man's done at the Statue of Liberty, and he's a menace, and if he was a real hero, why is he hiding behind a mask? And then you're like, well, the spell worked. No one knows who Spider-Man is. No one knows who Peter Parker. No one knows who Peter Parker is. And then it's snowing, and this is the moment I'm like, you go back, mate. You go back and you watch Civil War, Tom Holland, Peter Parker. He's a kid. This was the first moment he's wearing this jacket, the attire he's wearing, he's walking down. I'm like, he's a man now. He's a legit man now. 6 films, 3 solo movies. He's grown up. He walked into to the diner or whatever it is, and I'm just like, this is our boy is now a man. And he's on his own. He can do it himself. Like, it just felt like it just felt like he walked into that diner. I'm like, this is a completely different Peter Parker than what was at the start of this movie, let alone when you go back to Civil War when he was introduced. He's this is what we were waiting for. The huge character development, the huge character growth. They've nailed it. He's here. For sure. It's the moment. How do you feel about that scene when he goes in and sees MJ and he's got sort of his script going? Like, man, fuck.
I did not expect it to go the way that it did the first time I saw it. I did expect him to, like, I don't know why I guess because this Spider-Man has never been what I expect of Spider-Man. So I guess I never expected it to go down that route of him deciding in the end to not say anything. But as soon as he saw, like, that she was hurt, And like he realizes like that's because of me. If she knows and she's with me, she's always going to be in danger. And him like giving her up so that she can go off to college and she can have that opportunity and not have to worry about being with him was just such like it was just such a Spider-Man moment. Just seeing that when he puts the note back in his pocket and he just takes the coffee and he's just like he decides to just leave. Like you can see his eyes tearing up, but like he knows he's doing, you know, what is the right thing.
Do you know what else
is just such a powerful moment?
Do you know what else comes into that moment? Is that there's no, what I love about it, and I'm only just thinking about this now, like you said, such an emotional weighted moment of making that decision to let them go. But there's no conflict in him to go, I should just give up being Spider-Man so I can be Peter and be with them, my friends. He's like, I am Spider-Man.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's
He's
so
made the decision. Yeah. And I don't think that is given enough credit in that scene. If that makes sense. Because you're like, yes, that's a great Peter Parker thing to do that he's doing. But the only way he can make that decision is if he's totally fine with the fact that he's like, I cannot give up being Spider-Man. Because he could have them. It's not an issue if he's not Spider-Man. But it's not even a thought for him. It's not even a thought for him. He is like,
prior to this film, he's had moments where he has considered one way or the other. Like Far From Home, that was a major thing, was him like being like, well, if I just like give off my responsibilities and like, you know, Mysterio can take the glasses and someone else can be the next Iron Man and someone else can do this and whatever. And a lot of this film was like, you know, him saying like, well, it's not my problem to deal with these people. Like we need to send them home. It's someone else's responsibility. And then like him realizing and getting that message from May and then again reinforced by Toby and Andrew, like that he does have a responsibility. And like Toby and Andrew as well, like Toby saying it's what we do. Is like he realizes this is what he's supposed to be doing. Like he is Spider-Man at this point. Like previously, like this is the first time he's really been Spider-Man. Like what Spider-Man truly stands for.
I can agree with that.
And it's earned, and it's a really powerful moment, and you get to see that
so
when
earned. It's the most earned. It's the most earned.
Yeah, it's
we've
brilliant.
ever seen.
Yeah.
And even just like, and here's the thing, and this is what like. We'll talk about, because I want to talk to you about what do you think's coming next, because that's we're buzzing about it. But you know, he leaves the diner, he walks away, he goes to his he's got an apartment, he's by himself, he's alone.
My God. Tell you what, when he opened the door to that fucking grimy old apartment, I was like, this is it. This is perfect. And you got someone like saying like rent is due on the 1st of the month. I was like, this is it. This is perfect. Like,
he's got no backup. He's got no technology, no Stark tech. No one to back him up. No mates.
It's so good. He's just in an old fucking apartment with a police fucking radio on his phone.
Yeah.
And with his own fucking suit that he's made.
Yes,
like,
the suit.
It's perfect. It is fucking perfect, but it's so earned as well.
Yeah.
And that's what's so special about it.
How did you feel about the new suit? How do you feel about it? You love it?
Oh, I really, really like it, yeah. I mean, we've not seen it clearly enough to for me to know.
And I feel like they'll adjust it a bit in the next movie.
Yeah,
like, I'm sure they'll
the next
have
one will probably look
redos and shit.
A proper design for it. But I really like it. Like, it looks very classic Spider-Man.
I'm glad they didn't change his mask though, because that's his Spider-Man mask. If that makes sense.
It's his face. It's what like he looks like, which is really nice. So I like that that's still similar and stuff. But I really like the design. I like the brighter blue. I think that gives it a bit of character, gives it a bit of uniqueness. So it's not like that dark blue like we always see. I really like it. I think it looks really, really sick. I really want to see it properly. But the more I see it, the more I love it. So yeah, it's really nice.
Having him in the new suit, you see the sewing machine, and you even have like, and he's putting things out, and he's got the Palpatine from Ned's Death Star that he puts down there, and it's just like, wow, this. But it's a bit of like this weird feeling of like you're so excited because like this is Spider-Man, this is Peter Parker, like this is what I want to see this now. Like I want to see the next movie now. I want to see the next story with Tom as Peter again. I want to see it. I can't wait to see it. From where he's at this point, this home base that he's at. But then you're a bit sad. You're like, he's fucking alone. He doesn't have any family.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any
literally has
friends.
nobody.
He has nobody, and he's on his own, and he's still like, this is what I do. He's not sitting there thinking, let's get a job, let's do this, that, or the other. I'm just like, let's get to Spider-Man work, because that's who I am, and that's what I do. And it's like, wow. And he's just swinging around New York City, in the snow, in the new suit, And I'm like, this is, wow. They've done, everything's earned. Like you said, everything is earned.
Yeah.
This is Spider-Man. This is our Spider-Man. We've got everyone that argues about who's better, Tom, Toby, Andrew. Doesn't matter anymore. We've seen them all together. We've all got the payoffs for Toby. We've all got the payoffs for Andrew. It's Tom's time now. He is Spider-Man. He's everyone's Spider-Man. Let's keep going with his movies. I could watch him forever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm excited to see. They've talked about. I was worried going into the movie. I'm like, maybe this movie sucks as well, because Tom keeps talking about he's off contract now. He's not signed anymore, so this is his last one. We don't know if we're doing movies together. There's a lot of tears at the end of the movie, and I'm like, man, does this suck that bad? Like, but then it's sort of come out that Kevin Feige's already like, oh no, Spider-Man 4 is already in development.
Yeah,
and it's like, cool. The Homecoming trilogy's over, and that was what Kevin Feige talked about a few years ago. He's like, he wants to do 9 movies. He wants like 3 trilogies, like high school, college, adult. And I'm like, yes, of course.
Yeah,
and
easy.
And then have your Miles movies.
Yeah, you can pass it off to Miles. Have that 3rd trilogy introduce Miles properly,
exactly. I let Miles have his Spider-Verse shine now during this college trilogy. Don't introduce Miles into live action, I don't think, until the 3rd trilogy, until he's an adult grown up. That's what I think.
Yeah,
I think save it for
that'd be a great way of transitioning over and having Miles then be able to take the spotlight.
Yeah.
And take it in a new direction. Yeah, but it's exciting.
Because I think it's inevitable to see the next Spider-Man be Miles after Tom
gotta be.
walks away, which I don't need to see happen anytime soon. I'm thoroughly enthralled with Tom Holland's Peter Parker and Spider-Man for the next while. Like, they've got me more invested in this character than I've ever been before. I can't wait to see what's next. And what's even sadder is, like, there is the strong possibility that Zendaya, or as in MJ and Ned, won't be in the next movie. Think about MIT's in Boston. Peter has just rented an apartment in New York. He's not going to Boston. He's in New York. That's where Spider-Man is. That's where he is. And his 2 friends are not there. They're not even in the same city. So, what is it? I'm sure he's going to college, but he'll go in New York. You know? So what does that mean? Like, does that really mean, will we not see Ned and MJ again? And that sucks, because I do love MJ. Like, in my head, I'm like, how is he going to get them to remember him? Like, I think the handshake will be an element to Ned's memory. Like, I think muscle memory, Ned will just know the handshake
I think there's a point where I think they can bring them back, and I think they might do down the line at some point.
Yeah.
Have them come back again. But for me, the thing is, the way that you got to do it is they've got to be the ones to come back rather than Peter seeking them out.
Yes.
Because that way it undoes, his decision to leave them if he decides, I can go back to him now.
Right. Like, it's got to be like, Peter's at this job he's working, and then she has a job there too. Like, MJ's like, oh, yeah, they meet.
They cross paths again for some reason. Yeah.
And he's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, yeah, that'll be cool, to be fair. Like, they cross paths by fate. And it's not I agree. It has to be that way. It can't be him seeking him out. He can't go to Boston. Like, I wouldn't even mind if, like, he goes to Boston, like, because he sort of wants to see how they are, but he's not actually... He's never intending to go and say hi to them or anything. He's just sort of like, maybe watching... I don't know. Maybe that's too much, but, like, I'd find it hard to believe that he's not sort of checking up on him. But maybe that's too hard.
Maybe just on the old Instagram,
Maybe it hurts too much, so he just avoids it altogether.
Yeah. I think that's a very Peter Parker thing to do, to just leave it behind, just move on.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Goes to college next. He's Spider-Man. He's in New York. No one knows him. A couple of questions for you. What's he doing for work, do you think? Is he Daily Bugle... taking photos of Spider-Man? What's he doing?
Oh, I hope so.
Is that what you want? You want it to be that?
Yeah.
You want it to be the classic?
Yeah, do it again. Okay. I love it.
I guess so.
It's so good.
I don't care what he does. Like, I don't need it to be that at all.
Have him do that or deliver pizzas or both.
I'd love to see him, like, doing a bunch of different jobs and sucking out at, like, delivering pizzas and, like, doing all that shit. Like, that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, I want to see him trying to... Because I think moving forward, he's got to learn... Because he's never had to juggle both lives, really. Because he lived with May. Like, he was never having to get a job and juggle being Peter Parker and juggle being Spider-Man. So I think now that he's, he's going to have a big commitment going to college. He's gonna have to pay his rent somehow, and he's got to be Spider-Man. So I'm interested to see the way he juggles those things in the next film, and to see how does that affect him, and then how does that tie in with potentially the symbiote being an element of the next film.
Well, that's right. That's what you sort of know for the next
with the post-credit scene.
Yeah, the symbiote is now involved in this world, and how that affect him as a character. Is this a chance to bring in? So Peter's at college. He meets Harry Osborn through there. And we know Oscorp's not a company now, but what if it's an up-and-coming thing now? The weapons industry is empty now that Stark Industries is sort of... Tony's gone. They've been under pressure in No Way Home. This new sort of weapons company comes up. That's what Oscorp is. And he meets Harry at college.
Yeah, that's a huge possibility. I think there's that's a way.
And it has to be Timothée Chalamet. It has to be. It has to be. That's Harry Osborn. I think it has to be. I think
it'll work.
To be. He's such a great actor. He's a phenomenal actor.
He's great. Yeah, he's terrific.
And he's a similar age. He looks young, like Tom looks young. I think that would be a perfect dynamic. And Timothy's got such range as an actor. He could play a good guy, turn bad, both in between. And he starts dating MJ. That would be fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like all those sorts of things. Yeah,
you could do a lot. What I would love to see them do in terms of symbiote stuff is, I think one of the issues I've had with like Spider-Man 3, for example, is trying to do it all in one film. Trying to do
it in the trilogy.
Black suited Spider-Man and doing Venom in a single film. Don't do that. Have the first film be about, Peter contending with what like having the black suit and having the symbiote and that change in his mood and his headspace and like trying to get back to himself and overcome that. Then when he loses the symbiote, have the ending of the film, like he could be fighting another villain or whatever. Then at the end of the film, have it set up Venom. Have the symbiote, when he finally gets rid of the symbiote, have it set up Venom. And then it's like, okay, so the sequel is going to be focused on, so now who's got the symbiote, whoever ends up with it, becomes Venom. And then Venom becomes, this big villain in the sequel, and that's then something he has to contend with. Because when you try to do it all in one film, it's just too much, and you don't get enough time with any of it.
And we know we've got so many movies with this Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, there's no need to rush anything. There's no need to rush it. We've got fucking 9 of them, probably, plus Avengers movies. Like, that's not even... Like, the way Tom Holland described it with Sony is like, now... Well, he said in the press tour, he's like, oh, now Sony have such a... Because people are like, oh, we can't believe we're here. Like, almost didn't happen. And Tom goes, yeah, well, now Sony and Marvel have this great relationship with all these movies. Like, this deal with all these movies. And I go... When I heard that, I was like, oh, that's a good sign, because we only know of 2 movies they've got a deal for. And the way Tom described it is like they've got a great relationship with deals with lots of movies. And it's like, oh, shit, that's fantastic. And why wouldn't you? Far From Home's the first Spider-Man movie to make over $1 billion. And then No Way Home made $1 billion in 10 days. Like, financially, it makes no sense to split them up. It would be so fucking retarded for Sony to go, nah, we want them for ourselves.
Yeah, it'd make no sense. I'm very interested to see how they deal with MCU Spider-Man colliding in the future, and how big of a role he plays, or what they decide to do.
I think he should be in the Avengers as much as anyone else is. I think he should be in there with the next generation of Avengers, with Sam's Cap, Bucky, Yelena, Kate. Like, I think
Spider-Man if you're doing those stories, like the Captain America type stories, I'm totally cool with that. I just don't really want to see him go to space again necessarily.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Unless
you
do like Secret Wars, but
now I'm talking Earth stories. I'm talking Dark Avengers versus New Avengers. Like, we're talking, you know what I mean? Like John Walker and a few other characters, and then you've got the New Avengers, which is like the Yelena, Kate Bishop, and a bit of a crossover because obviously Clint will be there too. But you've got Sam, Bucky, and maybe a few others. Like, you could throw in a Wanda in there, but maybe she's going to be involved in other shit. She won't be in that. Like, you don't know, because she'll be with Doctor Strange. I
feel like she's way too powerful now. I feel like they've just upped her power level so much. Now she knows what she's doing. Yeah,
like, if you were to have 6 now, because I remember when Endgame ended, we were like, who are the 6 Avengers going to be? But we split them into space and Earth. If you're looking at Earth's Avengers, you've got Yelena, Kate, Sam, Bucky, Spider-Man, and who else is like a grounded Earth character? Well, Clint, you could put Clint in there as like the OG. The only one standing is Clint.
Maybe.
Shang-Chi?
I feel like they're
Shang-Chi?
gonna- I mean, you could do. I feel like the Avengers are going to take a much different form moving forward, though. I feel like the Avengers of this new phase are going to be totally different from the Avengers of
I
the
agree
new
with that.
before.
I agree.
Like,
Sam's still the boss.
Yeah.
We're just Cap's still the boss, and that's I won't have it any other way. I won't accept anything else.
yeah. I'm interested to see them form a team, though, if that's the direction they're going to go in. Because at the minute, everyone feels very spread out. I'm interested to see if they do form another team of Earth's mightiest heroes, similar to what we had before, rather than it just being like a bunch of spread out heroes that sometimes come together.
Yeah, I guess
liked that there was an actual team before.
Yeah, I guess the way I describe Spidey involved in that, throw him out of there, but the other 5 are very closely knit because Clint is very close with Sam and Bucky. Like, they were all on Steve's side with everything, the 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then obviously Kate and Yelena are tied in with Clint drastically. And I'm such a big fan of Yelena and Kate just quietly. I'm like, it's spoilers for Hawkeye, but I adored that show. I fucking loved Hawkeye. And I know you don't like the Black Widow movie, but Yelena in it was so good. I'm such a big fan of Florence Pugh. I'm such a big
She was good in Hawkeye. I liked her in Hawkeye.
And they gave her a lot of good shine. Like, they even did her in The Snap and like all of that stuff. I really enjoyed. So the way they're tied in, and Clint definitely, like, let's say something happens. Like, I could easily see some sort of like big moment, but to be fair, I don't think it'll be the next Avengers movie. I think Captain America 4, I think Clint, Kate and Yelena will be in Captain America 4 personally. Like, I think they'll be in there because I think something big will be happening, something like Avengers level threat. Because the Captain America movies are big movies, like since Winter Soldier and Civil War, like they're movies that are for big things to happen in the universe. And I feel like it'll be like that level, like a Dark Avengers type thing will pop up. And you've obviously got fucking Valerie, fucking Lady Hydra there, setting that up. And you'll have Cap and Bucky, and they'll need help, and they'll call in Clint. And Clint will have Kate there, and that'll lead into Yelena. Like, I just feel like that'll tentatively tie in a bit of a mini Avengers team where it's like, that's the beginning of the new Avengers. It's not an Avengers movie. It's just the sort of, we're teasing you, the next generation Avengers, this is what they're going to sort of look like. And it'll be, Sam leading him. And Bucky right by his side. And I think Clint will be all about it. Clint's, because that's who he is. And then it'll give Kate and Yelena time to shine. Because I'd love to see a Kate and Yelena together. Like, they had a great dynamic in the Hawkeye show. Did you liked Hawkeye yet?
Yeah. I liked Hawkeye.
Okay.
It was good.
Did you like Kate and Yelena? And their sort of...
I loved them. I thought Kate was fucking terrific.
Yeah.
I thought she was brilliant. I can't wait to see her again.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm a big Yelena fan. That I think I like Yelena more than Kate. But I liked Kate a lot.
I like her, but I don't know enough about her yet. I feel like she can be funny and like she's cool, like she does cool shit.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't know her enough.
Yeah. I think I just like
I want to see that.
I just love the actress as well. I think Florence Pugh's such an amazing actress.
Yeah.
Like, cause she's been in so many movies, and she's like, the range on her, she's like an Andrew Garfield type, where like she's a legit actor. She's not a singer. Like Haley Steinfeld's like, she's great and everything. I love her as Kate, but I don't know the many dimensions that Haley Steinfeld has as an actress. I know that Florence Pugh can do everything.
Yeah.
Maybe make a good Black Widow movie with her. That might be nice.
Yeah, do that. Make a good one.
Yeah.
Should have done that to begin with.
Yeah, of course.
Fucking idiots.
Yeah, no, wait till they kill
Kevin
Yelena
Feige
and
really
then,
dropped the ball there.
And then make a Black Widow.
Yeah. Make her die, kill her off,
Yep.
then make a Black Widow film with her. Don't do it yet, though. Do it in 15 years,
I agree.
alright?
I agree with you. I think that's the way to go. I think that's the only way to go.
That's the best move, yeah.
That we do know. We know that's the best move. That we do know.
And also make it bad as well.
Make it awful. Make it worse than the first one.
Is that possible? Some might ask.
Yeah, some might ask. How do you do it? And Kevin Feige, guys, watch this.
Every so often he likes to put a bad film out there. He knows what he's doing.
I
It's all
think
part of the
everyone
grand
was like,
plan.
I can't believe you were so late to making a Black Widow movie. You're the worst, Kevin. And then he's like, oh, well, here you go. You asked for it. And he's just like, here's the big middle finger to everyone that was fucking demanding it. And he's like, well, you asked for it. That's what you get. You get shit.
Yeah.
Don't ask me again for this shit. Don't ask me again. I don't want to make it. I want to make Spider-Man
Classic
movies
Kevin
that are
Feige.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think their next appearance for those characters will be in Cap 4 and Spider-Man 1.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But, we know there's a team-up movie that they're contracted for that Spider-Man's in. We know that. Like, that was confirmed when they signed the deal. They were going to do a third movie and an unannounced movie. So, But but by the sounds of it, that we know they're also developing Spider-Man 4. So we've got time for a while. So like you said, I think go slow with the symbiote. I don't think you have to have MJ be his girl. That's how I feel about it. But that also be a slow burn back. I don't necessarily think it needs to happen in this movie, but by the end of this next trilogy, that should all be sort of a thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
Do you introduce a Gwen Stacy? That's another question for this, to be like a New York girl in the meantime.
I think it's possible. I mean, it's interesting because they've talked about Gwen now with Andrew, and the purpose of Gwen always, every time she ever shows up, is her purpose is literally just to die. That's like the point of her character.
Yeah.
So
unless you get Gwen Spider Girl type thing.
You could go down that route, or you could switch things on their head and be like, Gwen doesn't die. I don't know what you do with her though, because like her whole point is that she's a stepping stone to get to Mary Jane, and to have like MJ come back. Or
Michelle Jones. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what
Mary
I mean.
Jane sucks. Michelle Jones.
Okay, we're not getting into this. But I guess I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go and what they do. I mean, they could. Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know, because there's so many like doors that are open now, and like the MCU has shown you can do like Spider-Man things, but flip it on its head and do it differently, or whatever. So I think they can really go anywhere with it. I'd like to see him introduce like Harry Osborn. I think that'd be cool.
What's Peter's reaction though when he hears the name Osborn and Oscorp?
See, that's
stuff? Like,
a big
thing.
I want to see
fuck?
like.
Because you can't have another Green Goblin. You can't do it. You can't have Norman Osborn become Green Goblin. That can't happen. I just think that will sort of ruin it. And my internet's died for the first time in 2 hours. Fuck me. Right.
Sick.
What I was saying was, you can't what's Peter's reaction going to be when he hears Norman Osborn and Oscorp and stuff? You can't have Green Goblin come back again. It can't happen. You can't have Norman be Green Goblin if you do introduce a Harry and a Norman. We've already done Green Goblin.
I think it should be a point of conflict though for Peter, because like obviously Norman Osborn, tore his life apart in a sense. And
he should be super wary of him type thing.
Yeah, so I want to see how he reacts to that, but I would like them not to go down the Peter was right and Norman is bad again sort of thing. But it could be interesting if you have like Harry, take on the symbiote and become Venom in this universe. Like there's
that's the way to go. That's the way to go. I like where your head's at. Timothy Chalamet, bro. Have him in there. But have him become like, I think in that first movie, have him become like legit great friends. Like he doesn't have any friends. And he becomes great friends with Harry through this trilogy. And that's sort of their friendship is this trilogy. I'd love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's my fan cast. I don't think you can have anyone else. Like I literally think if they have Harry Osborn, there's one person and that's it. It's fucking Timothy.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice.
Yeah. Who else would you have? Who else could you have?
James Franco again.
Oh, dude, imagine that. Imagine having James Franco's little brother. Like, yeah.
Amazing.
No, definitely not. It's Timothy or get fucked. That's my opinion. But yeah, that's dude, I can't wait for the next Spider-Man movie. I'm so excited.
I know
for the next Spider-Man movie.
It's big. I'm just like. Yeah, I'm blown away that they got everything so fucking right.
I'm going to say something
ended it
crazy
in
right
an amazing place.
I am as excited for the next Spider-Man movie as I am for Captain America 4. That's what I'm saying. That's the level.
That's big.
That's the level of how much I fell in love with Spider-Man in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not... Cap's my hero, Cap's my dude, Sam's my dude now, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of these people that's like, fucking Chris Evans, fuck, the new actors. No, Sam's my dude. I fucking love Sam. And I love Anthony Mackie. He's my Cap. Let's go. I can't wait for Cap 4. Can't wait. Literally, cannot wait. But equally cannot wait to see what happens with Tom's Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I'm buzzing. They're the two heroes that I'm the most invested in going forward in the MCU. Everyone else, I like obviously very keen for the new Thor and Guardians. That's all well and good. I'm a big fan of like Hawkeye and those grounded characters. I'm a more grounded guy. The Earth stuff, so Spider-Man, Cap, that's where I'm at. They're my guys at the moment. For this next generation, Spider-Man, Cap, they're the two. They're the next Iron Man, and Cap, I guess, right? Like Steve and Tony, it's now Peter and Sam. That's to me this next generation's key focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
at least for the Earth's mightiest heroes that are the Avengers. That shouldn't involve any space people anymore. It should not involve fucking Captain Marvel. It should not involve fucking Thor. With the greatest respect to Thor, Thor should be off doing his own thing.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Until you get to one of those like big end game type films, in which case I'm happy for him to.
Yeah, of course, but I
not
feel like
regularly.
You need to earn that again. You need to earn that over another 10 years before you get another.
Yeah, you can't just have him going straight back to space. It kind of makes it a bit, like
a bit funky. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I mean, I'm looking forward to what they did with Spider-Man. I'm looking forward to Cap 4. I'm a little bit wary about Cap 4 because obviously it's not going to be the same guys. So it's going to be a bit weird. Like, are they going to get it wrong? Are they going to fuck it up?
What do you mean by the same guys? Well, the guys who wrote Falcon
doing it.
Yeah, but the Russos never wrote them either.
True, but
and the guys that wrote Falcon Winter Soldier are writing Cap 4.
Oh, are they really? Okay.
Yeah. The same team that wrote Falcon Winter Soldier, that lead writer, the showrunner, he's writing the script for Cap 4.
Yeah, I guess for me the worry is less the writing. I guess it is more the directing, because I think the way that those Cap films looked was so
important.
I don't know. I love how they look and like the way the action's directed and stuff. And I don't think that was done great in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that was like one of the places it fell flat was some of the action.
I mean, I only thought the action fell flat in the last episode. I thought the action was really good throughout the show, personally. Like when Bucky and Sam fought John Walker was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that was fine. I don't think it holds that same. I don't know. There's something about like Winter Soldier and Civil War that are just so.
I'm holding my breath personally that the Russo brothers will be making Cap 4 personally, because the rumor mill is that the Russos are coming back to Marvel to direct again. They're trying to sign him under a contract. Kevin's trying to get him back, and right now, we know they're looking for it. They don't have a director for it yet. I actually think Kevin wants him back for Cap 4 personally.
Yeah, I mean, you would want him back. So
I think
it makes sense.
If you're gonna bring him back, be like, look, Cap 4 is gonna be as big as Cap 2 and 3, like scale wise. I know you just made the two biggest movies all time in Infinity War and Endgame, but you also made Cap 2 and 3, and they were huge. They were huge movies. And Civil War made 1.2 billion. Like that was a huge fucking movie, like financially as well. And this one can be as big, and you need the Russos to make it that big as well. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm wait until I hear who the director is. I'm not worried about it. But once we hear the director, then we can really be like, oh, now I'm worried or not worried type thing of like how it's going to be. Because for all we know, the Russos sign on. I'm just saying. I'm holding out this weird. I know it's unlikely. I'm not saying this is probably what will happen. I'm just saying I'm holding out hope. I have this small little hope that I'm like, what if the Russos come back and we're fine?
Marvel's what if, you might say.
No, we might not say. We're not saying that.
No, you wouldn't?
No, we wouldn't say that.
I would say it.
Yeah. But anyway, Spider-Man, well done. No Way Home. Well, there's not much to say. We've gone through everything. I loved it. I thought it was an absolutely amazing movie. It's top 3 MCU for me. That's where I put it. At third, but it's in that top 3. It's in the elite. It's in the god tier category.
Yeah, I think it's going to take me a bit before I can definitely say how much I love it. But I mean, for me at the minute, Spider-Man 2 is still on top. And I'm sort of toying with, do I prefer No Way Home or do I prefer Into the Spider-Verse? They're sort of level pegging for me at the minute, but one will pull ahead at some point. I'm sure.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, for me, No Way Home, it's not even for me as I'm not a big Spider-Man guy. No Way Home is the best, my favorite Spider-Man movie by a fucking country mile. It's my favorite Spider-Man movie. Like, there's nothing close. Homecoming's my second, and it's not close. Like, it's so far away. It's so far away. Yeah. And it's funny, Civil War's my third favorite Spider-Man movie. As well. Wow. I mean, it was a great depiction. It was a great fucking depiction.
Yeah, it was good. It was solid.
Yeah. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler cast. I'm sure there's lots of discussion going on in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on the movie, anything we broke down, your favourite scene. What was your favourite scene of the movie?
What's your favourite scene? Let us know your favourite Spider-Man and rank the other two as well. Let us know in great detail why you feel that way,
No, don't do that. No. Positive comments. The comment section is, what was your favourite scene from the movie and why? What was that moment that got you emotional, that drove you over the edge? What were your thoughts? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching this episode of the As Always Spoilercast podcast.
Yeah. Thank you.
And of course, thank you to people over at patreon.com/as always for making the show happen. And if you want, like we're listening to here, and you want to hear more, head over to patreon.com/as always. You can get exclusive access to over 125 episodes of the Clubhouse podcast. That's the best podcast on the internet. Trust me on that. It's fucking tremendous. Go check it out for just $1 a month. There's also other tiers for other bonuses, including getting on the credits of all of our podcasts, including this show. So thank you to those people that are on the credits. Thank you to Ollie the Superior Ollie, Avery Dobbs, Clark53, Damien, Epic Alaric or Sam's Chubby Dick, Ferrantino, Flash Paradox, Franco, Disper Olsen, King Richard III, Ryan Hayford, Tristan Weaver, Viridian, Ballsack47, Aragon, Kimasaba Gamer Cream Pies, Lumistrad, Sicarius, aka Kieran, Adam, the Melissa, Bonnie Simp, Alfie Robert, Andy Cool, Big Dick 66999, Ben Davis, Ben Higgins is thankful for a stick brethren. Benedict Klobbers, BFHC, Biggest Fucking Virgin, Bodge, BQ Overlord, The Elder, Brian Ford, Christian0210, Connor DeRose, Billy Alley, CSV, Emil Catborg, Radito Hacker, Ethan Dean, Fishy, Furious Coco, Gene, Gimme a Penis, Kinko Swag, God Bless the Visionary Zack Schneider, Gwen Hughes, Hookie, Jack, DG, 1998, Jaden B. Bennett, Joe the Founder Scarab, Josh Duvillier, Josh J. Anderson, Joshua Mora. I don't know why it didn't go to page 2. It just took me back to fucking page 1. That was bizarre.
Classic.
Oh, that really fucked me. What's going on? Oh, no, it's done the same thing again. It's not going to the next page.
Oh, no.
It's literally just staying on page 1. What's happening? I go to the next page and see exact same names. Joshua Mora. So
Joshua Mora,
I finished
page 2. Or hold on, I can get to page 2. Here we go.
It's just
Kassassin,
repeating the same
Christian
page.
Rowe, Liam, Luca, Lucas, R05, Louis the Leon, Mario 5380, Master Bass, Max H, Merry Theftmas, Muddy Unicorn, Nick Miller, Otaku World 7, our best and favourite mob brownie, Philip Stillwagon, Polio, Poothy, Got Me, Disabled, aka Zacchino, Radok, Ravjai, Seth, Son of a Bitch, OG Doggo, Sparky Bark, Spectral Division, Sussy, Imposter, Amogus Moment, The Blue Cow, they call me the Greenie Bearer, but Assassin Christmas is long gone, aka Connor, TJFL, Tony, Tristan Obigfell, Walshy, and Zeppo. Thank you all so much. We love you. You're great.
Amazing.
Top gamers.
Thank you all for watching. And we'll see you all in... I mean, it might be 2022 already, now, to be fair. It's so close.
Oh, God.
I don't know. So, Happy New Year.
We'll see you soon,
and
all right?
we'll see you in the end of January, start of Feb for the relaunch of Fort Pillars Network and all the podcasts and all that cool shit. So, looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us. Hope you all had a safe and great Christmas and holiday. And we will see you all very soon. Thank you. And goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.